Cawthorn. I saw him on there, but I'm not hearing him.
Present.
And then Gage Watts. Oh, I'm sorry. It looks like we are not live yet. It looks like we had an interruption on the signal. If we could restart roll call in just a sec.
Jeff, I believe we're good now.
Thank you, Crystal. I appreciate that. Okay, we'll start back over. Commissioner Hopkins.
Here.
Commissioner Johnson.
Here.
Commissioner Jackson. Commissioner Young.
Here.
Commissioner Burrell.
Here.
Commissioner Cawthorn.
Present.
Commissioner Gage Watts. Commissioner Taliaferro.
Here, sir.
Commissioner Atkins.
Here.
Commissioner Chavez. Commissioner Lazarus.
Here.
And Commissioner Epperson.
Yeah.
We have a quorum. There are 10 present, 2 absent.
Mr. Clerk, I'm not sure that anyone can hear the president.
Okay, Mr. President, so I can try to find a different speaker.
Invocation by Commissioner Taliaferro.
Can y'all hear him at all?
We could hear him at the end.
I can go next to the speaker as close as it can be, but I just am not sure the sound is transferring well. Okay, Commissioner Chavez has asked Commissioner Taliaferro to give the invocation and Commissioner Epperson to give the Pledge of Allegiance, and we will hopefully be able to resolve his speaker issue in just a sec.
All right, we ready? Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we come to you before you with humble and hurting hearts because of the turmoil our nation is in. Although we may not understand how all this fits into your plan of the kingdom, we know that the destruction of property and the loss of life is displeasing in your eyes. And we ask for your love and your grace as we go forward to resolving peace and justice in our nation. We also ask, Lord, in your name of your son, Jesus, that you continue to bless our nation and be the spiritual instrument for our elected officials, our president, our governors, as they attempt to restore law and order as your word commands. We also pray for the safety of our first responders, our police, our fire, our medical, our military, as they stand in the gap between good and evil, both throughout our nation and around the world, Lord. Give grace and wisdom to our commission as we continue to do the business of the people that we serve, that we may have followed the steps of the greatest servant the world has ever known, your son, Jesus. In your name we pray, amen.
Let's all stand, if we would. If you have a flag in your presence, face the flag. Veterans and active military, render the standard hand to brow salute. All others, right hand across your heart. And we'll say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Mr. Clerk, with the permission of the president, I might suggest if he's not able to communicate properly, that Vice President Johnson conduct the meeting on his behalf.
Is that
Good idea.
yeah, okay, I think he's just logged in. Thank you guys for the patience. I think he's been able to find another way to log in, so he should be in the room.
Can you hear me all right?
There we go.
Okay. I think it
Mario,
was.
Mario, I can come over there and help you with your technology if you need some help.
No, they didn't want. I had to upgrade. I guess my Zoom. It asked me. It prompted me to upgrade my Zoom protocol this morning. That's weird. But greetings, commissioners. Thanks for taking care of that for me, Mr. Everson. Thank you, Commissioner Talaferro and Commissioner Epperson. We will move on. Do we have any agenda additions?
We do not have
Yes,
any
sir.
agenda. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir. I can go now.
Yes, sir.
I'd like for us to recommend the option of individual commissioners that may be under the age condition and underlying health conditions to be provided the option of participating in our future meetings during this pandemic time via Zoom.
Second.
All right, we have a motion on the floor and a second. Commissioner Epperson, would you like to speak on your agenda addition?
Okay, looking at the even the
Before we speak on
guidelines.
this, point of
Pardon?
information, before we speak on an agenda addition, we need to open it up for the public.
That's correct. Okay, Commissioner Epperson, hang tight 1 second. Commission Clerk, can you post on our Facebook stream the phone number so that if the citizens would like to speak either for or against the expansion of the agenda and the addition of the agenda item, that they may call in, and we'll give them a minute or two to do that.
We'll do that.
All right, thank you. Citizens, we now open the floor for public comments either for or against. Please contact the commission office, and Mr. Everson, please just verbally state it as well in case people are just listening in and not watching it via Facebook.
So the phone number that you can call is 318-226-6596. Or you're welcome to email those comments to jeverson@caddo.org.
We'll give about a moment before we continue just to make sure that nobody's calling in. All right, there are no phone calls. We'll go ahead and allow Commissioner Epperson to speak on his motion.
Okay, just wanted to see we entered into phase 2, and also in some of the guidelines that have been rendered, it has 65 and older in age, underlying health conditions, and all ill personnel are encouraged to remain home, as well as limit visitations, etc. daily. Just thought that should be an option that we should have. Those of you that would like to attend in person and you don't have any issues with it, of course you can attend in person. But I still think that we should have, with the technology that we have, that those of us that under those guidelines should be allowed to participate via Zoom. I noticed that Supreme Court Justices meeting, unprecedented, historic via Zoom telecommunications, as well as committees and some portions of Congress also. So I think what's good for them is good for us also. We're in a technological age, whereas physical issues at some time and other issues should not impede us from doing what we were elected to do, be we in present or we be in a remote situation. Thank you.
Point of information, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Commissioner Burrell.
I just wanted to make sure it appears that I thought that I had received an email with someone saying that I can't remember who did. Can we do this both in the chamber and on Zoom? Is that an issue? It appears that it was in an email that was sent out earlier. I support Commissioner Epperson's request.
Commissioner Burrell brings up a good point. Before we have Young and Hopkins speak, Attorney Frazier, can you speak on that?
Yes, Commissioner. Right now, under the current governor's proclamation, that is the only authority for having virtual meetings. And you cannot have any virtual meeting or part of a virtual meeting unless you can certify that you cannot meet a quorum. So I believe that was part of the reason that today's meeting or today's work session got moved. And at the present time, the way that is set up, if you're not present at the meeting, you can't vote. So you would be potentially looking at a situation where the commissioners who are not present physically would not be able to vote if you had a partial Zoom meeting. So my suggestion or my hope is that the governor will address it in his next proclamation. But at this time, we do not know if going to phase 2, if he does not extend the possibility for a virtual meeting, no one would be able to participate by Zoom. And if the provision for virtual meetings is continued, then it would need to be addressed that the virtual participants will be allowed to count towards the quorum and will be allowed to vote.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. So I heard basically it's an all or nothing scenario. We either need to meet in person or meet via Zoom.
Or
okay, thank you.
But I understand. I still have the floor too. But I understand that it is the governor's decision on that. It's not a local. It's not a local option. He has to say whether or not we can actually continue the Zoom meetings, or whether or not, well, we're saying that it's virtually impossible to have both Zoom and a council meeting, or should I say chamber meetings.
Commissioner, that is correct, because the suspension of the state public meetings laws is what allows you to have a Zoom meeting, period. So that is why it's the governor's call and not a local option.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Commissioner Brill. Thank you, Attorney Frazier. Commissioner Young.
My questions have been answered. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Hopkins, likewise.
Correct.
Okay. Commissioner Vice President Johnson. LBJ, you're on mute.
Okay, I don't know if we talk about this here or when Ms. White comes up. I was gonna bring these questions up then, but referring back to the chamber, I mean, what precautions have been done to protect us when we have our meeting, other than the plexiglass on the side of us? Is there any plexiglass in front? How many people will be able to come into the chamber? How are the people in the chamber tested, or are they screened before they come in? You know, people are asymptomatic, and so they could come in, they could cough, they could be speaking at the podium and get all excited, and then all that is then blown toward us. What about recirculation of air? Has the air conditioning system been upgraded to filter out the air, the molecules? I mean, there's a lot of questions that have not been answered based upon the safety of public officials sitting in that chamber. You know, if we have a full house, I mean, who's gonna stop and who's gonna sit people in the chamber of where they need to sit at? Because they got to be 6 feet apart. And who's gonna do that? Who's gonna be screening as they come in? I know we screen for weapons and all that, but who's gonna be screening for, you know, temperatures, and do people now have to have some kind of identification saying that they're negative before they come inside? I mean, we have to look at all that. I mean, we are elected officials. We need to conduct the business of the parish, but at the same time, we need to make sure that our health is protected, just like we're protected from having weapons brought into the chamber. And if I need to repeat them questions again, I'm open to repeating those questions again.
Here.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to get on the board, please.
Yes, sir. I see you on there, Mr. Epperson. We do have two citizens that have called in that would like to speak on this.
Well, I ain't got no answers yet. I haven't got any answer.
We definitely have Martha White that's as the visitor right after Commissioner Jackson's representative from LSU HSC. And I know we can have Mr. Everson and Dr. Wilson speak on your questions in regards to the updates in the chamber. They're actually pretty impressive. I was there Monday, and I was impressed with what they've done. We'll speak on that. I would like to allow Commissioner Jackson and then Epperson to speak on Mr. Epperson's original motion. And I know we still have the two citizens on hold. So as soon as these two commissioners speak, let's allow the citizens to speak on the reason they called in. I believe it's for the expansion.
President
Yes,
Chavez, they have hung up now.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. We have one who's called back. I'm sorry. We do still have one after they're done.
Commissioners, would you allow that citizen to speak since they're on the call? Commissioner Jackson and Epperson.
Okay.
Is this pertaining?
Is that pertaining to the agenda?
I don't have anything. I shouldn't be on the board.
Oh, okay. I will move it. Commissioner Epperson, I guess to answer that question, Mr. Everson, will you ask the citizen if they're calling in regards to the agenda addition or the expansion?
Their call is related to the agenda addition. It's a direct call about that.
Per our bylaws, let's allow them to speak. Commissioner Epperson, just because we've given them the opportunity to call in, and it took a little bit minute because what we're doing here with this Zoom meeting. Mr. Everson, allow them to speak, and then we will move on to Commissioner Epperson.
Thank you. And Deputy Clerk Nations, can you put the caller on? Your phone is still muted,
hey,
I believe.
Are you still on the line? Okay, if you hold on one moment, I'm going to put you on speakerphone and allow you to speak, okay? You're welcome. Hold on 1 second, please. Can y'all hear her? Go ahead and speak, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Jill Brown. I'm a Phil. I just want to say that I do agree with this. I think that y'all need to stay at home in these meetings through things, not only for protection, but for the
Ms. Brown, are you still there? She just got disconnected.
Okay, commissioners, I believe if I heard her right, and Ms. Nations, you can recall, she said she thinks it would be better if we did not come in person to the meeting. Is that correct?
That's correct. She said for your safety, and then it cut off.
I got you. Okay, thank you for that. Commissioner Epperson, go ahead.
Since Ms. Frazier had given some clarification relative to the protocol of suspension of the in-person meeting by the governor's proclamation, I would like to amend that request to immediately send direction to the governor, asking the governor that he would put provisions in his future request relative to my concern.
The chair will second that. I'll make a note, commissioners. Of all the commissioners on this meeting today, I can honestly say that Commissioner Epperson, as far as my knowledge, has been quarantined this entire time. And obviously his safety is just as important as the rest of us. And if Commissioner Epperson would like to continue the Zoom meetings at home, then that's something that we obviously should consider. However, any other commissioners that I've seen out and about that have been at physical meetings, those are where I draw my concern, is if we're too scared to come to a meeting here at the government plaza. However, we've met at other locations, even COVID testing location sites. I'm leery about those and those reasonings. And I know a lot of commissioners may not know this. I had to make this inquiry, but our Zoom meetings are not free. I know a lot of the public are Zooming and doing different board games and whatnot with their friends and their family. But in a corporate setting, we actually have to pay a fee to the Zoom software company. So it is costing the taxpayers for us to Zoom. I just want to put that information out there. And I will definitely support Commissioner Epperson's resolution to send to the governor for that request.
Point of information, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, yes, sir, Commissioner Burrell.
Since you brought up the cost, I'm not sure what my life is worth. It may not be much to some, but it is very costly. I mean, should I say it's kind of valuable to my family, and I know it's valuable to my constituents that I have to represent. I don't have a problem, and I want to be clear, of us meeting face to face under any other circumstance. I went to the COVID testing because I wanted to make sure that I could keep my family safe. I don't know any other way to find out whether or not I'm asymptomatic or has had it before than to go to a COVID testing. And I was very grateful and thankful to be able to go to Galilee, which is my church, for the COVID testing. So I don't know of any other meeting I've been to, but when you mentioned that, for those who've gone to COVID testing, you know, I commend those who did, because they are providing safety for their families and for the community, and they're safeguarding their lives so that they can be in the leadership position that they need to be as a commissioner. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner. I have Commissioner Johnson and then Young.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to kind of bring some more direction to this particular agenda edition. Because I knew what the governor's executive order is. I mean, if we have one commission member that has a big concern about this, then we should support it. And you just mentioned that in your statement that you would support it. And so if that commissioner cannot make it to the meeting, then we really all should not make it to the meeting and do Zoom. So there's no dissension in the possibility of, well, you've seen some commissioners here or there. I'm supporting the cause of one commissioner has been quarantined, and I'm supporting that. And we can't have one sitting at home and then everybody else is in the chamber. So my vote was to support the commissioner that could not make it to the meeting. And still have a way for him to participate in the meeting and have a way for his constituents to still be represented when we do a meeting. That's cut and dry. There's no other underlying conditions and causes, but I do bring up those questions I brought up earlier about how are you going to protect the ones that do go into the chamber. With all the governing bodies that use the chamber, nobody still has used it yet. The MPC has not used it. The city council has not used it. And so there is some reason why nobody has used it yet. All right. The Zoom meetings, yeah, there is a cost, but I'm quite sure administration is using Zoom to conduct departmental meetings. I mean, they have those meetings. So therefore, if they're using Zoom to do that. So there's no additional cost to taxpayers because we are doing this. And you have not seen me at any COVID-19 screenings. I have not been. The only way I will go if I'm going to be tested. Other than that, I'm not going to them because I don't want to expose myself to somebody who could be asymptomatic to be there, and then I get the virus. Not going. So, you know, it's not about us not wanting to do the work of the parish. It's about supporting the cause. We do have a commissioner or a couple of commissioners that have concern about the safety of us being inside of that chamber. We can conduct the business like we're doing now. We've been doing it for the last couple of months. So let's make sure that it's safe for all and not just a few. Thank you.
Point of clarification, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Burrell.
I'm hearing this discussion, and you being our leader, and I expect you as our leader, number one, to safeguard all of us to the best of your ability. Secondly, I expect Commissioner Johnson, being our vice president, to do it. Thirdly, I expect Commissioner Atkins to do it in terms of protocol, and so on and so forth. Again, I'm trying to understand, maybe from your perspective, and you can explain that to me. What are we accomplishing in face-to-face under these conditions that we can't accomplish by the Zoom meetings that we've been doing in the last, over the last month or so? I'm not clear on that, because to me, therein lies the issue. Is it the image that we're trying to project, that everything is open whenever we still have a pandemic, although we have escalating conditions with COVID, and we haven't seen them yet because of people coming back out now and feeling more comfortable, whether it is through the protests or whether it is through going to the stores or whatever the case may be. They're becoming very lax. But we are leaders, and we should be projecting an image of safety regardless of what the constituents do. So I'm not clear on in terms of our business, what are the face-to-face meetings accomplishing more than what our Zoom meetings are for right now, Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Burrell, that's a good question. I'm going to yield to the other commissioners as well as Ms. White, because she's going to speak in a minute. I'll give you my explanation, just very brief. As a leader, I can't make medical calls, so I reached out to our medical professionals to say, is it safe? And I was given the go-ahead, as well as we had made the call on Friday via the public meetings law. We have 24 hours or 24 business hours to post a meeting. And when our clerk guided us that we had a quorum achieved, that enough commissioners would like to come back to work, coupled with the fact that the medical professional said, yes, it is safe for you to go back to work. And most importantly, the citizens would like to gain access to show up to speak in person to their representatives. As a leader, I deemed that seems like enough good reasons for us to meet back. Obviously, I was never informed.
Point of clarification.
Yes.
All right, on Friday, when we did do our survey, there were actually, that vote that was misinterpreted, because there were 4 that said Zoom, there was 2 that said they prefer Zoom, but they could come in. And then there was 1 that said that they would come in, but they can do Zoom as well. So those 3, the 1 that said that they could come in and can do Zoom, and then the 2 that said they prefer Zoom and will come in if necessary, those were all counted toward the majority of having a meeting. But when they said they prefer Zoom, that's which that was pointed out, if I'm not mistaken. But it carried on, nobody said anything.
Commissioner Johnson, you're breaking up pretty bad. Do you have your Wi-Fi set up?
Yeah, hold on. Did you hear it? Or do I need to do it?
I think we got the message.
Yeah, I think we did. I think the bulk of it was miscommunication delivered to us on the vote Friday before we posted the meeting is kind of what I gathered, if that's correct.
Correct. And it was misinterpreted because, and then when we tried to clarify it, it still carried as if we didn't say anything at all.
I got you. Let's, commissioners, we have a couple commissioners on the board that would like to speak. I hope these point of clarifications have been answered. Commissioner Young, and then Atkins, and then Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. President. It occurred to me that there might be circumstances under which Commissioner might prudently not return to the chamber in the coming months without having underlying health conditions or any of the exceptions that Mr. Epperson named. For instance, if somebody goes to the grocery store and someone coughs on them and they are concerned that they've been exposed, it might be prudent for them not to return to the chamber and sit so close to everyone. The second question I wanted to ask is whether it's a possibility for us to sit more separate inside the chamber the way we did at the very beginning of the pandemic, with some of us out in the audience, so that we could keep apart from each other if we chose to meet in the chamber later. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I got Atkins, then Jackson, then Epperson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I support Commissioner Epperson's amended agenda addition. It seems like a reasonable compromise. I agree that it's important that we protect the health and safety of those, particularly those that reach certain criteria that make them more vulnerable to the disease. But I also think it's very important that we show that we are re-engaging in the community, and we are re-engaging in our activities, and we are moving on with the life and the business of the commission, and helping to revive this economy and helping to revive our community. I think many of us that are in the bulk of the population are not at a high risk of death from this virus. And those of us that are not at a high risk should continue with their lives and continue with our community. That being said, there are members of the community and of our body who are at higher risk, and I certainly want to respect their situations. So, everybody has a unique risk profile, and everybody has a unique tolerance of risk. So if the governor would allow us to meet via a partial in-person meeting and partial Zoom meeting, I think that would be the best compromise situation. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner Atkins. I have Jackson, Epperson, and then Cawthorn. Commissioner Jackson? I seen him. Hey, Commissioner Jackson, you there?
Oh, I shouldn't be on the board.
Oh, I got that hand up. We'll move on to
I'm
Commissioner.
sorry, I should be on if I was.
Thank you, Commissioner Jackson.
Who's on?
You, sir, Commissioner Epperson, go ahead.
I called for the question on the agenda addition. Second.
So call for the question, Commissioner Epperson, second by Commissioner Jackson. Mr. Epperson, would you roll call, please?
Commissioner Hopkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson,
Yes.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Burrell,
Yes.
Commissioner Cawthorn,
Just as a point of clarification, I was on the board to speak, but my vote is yes.
Commissioner Gage Watts, Commissioner Taliaferro.
Yes.
Yes, Commissioner Gage Watts is yes.
Okay, thank you. I didn't hear you. Commissioner Atkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Chavez,
Yes.
Commissioner Lazarus,
Yes.
and Commissioner Epperson.
Yes.
Motion carries. So we move to the vote. That was the call to question. So now we go to adding the sending direction to the governor to direct the order to allow for partial Zoom participation in public meetings. Motion by Commissioner Epperson and second by Commissioner Atkins.
I think we actually have to vote on first expanding the agenda to add the addition.
That's what you just voted.
That's the vote we just took, Commissioner.
I thought we voted for call for the question.
That's correct.
That's correct.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
We have a three-part movement here. We have to we voted on a call for the question. Now we vote for expanding the agenda, and then later on in the agenda, we will vote on Commissioner Epperson's resolution.
That's correct.
All right. So let's vote on expanding the agenda and adding the addition. Remember, commissioners, this has to have 100% approval to get added.
And who is my motion and second on that?
It's by Commissioner Epperson and seconded by the chair.
Thank you. And so Commissioner Hopkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson,
Yes.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Burrell,
Yes.
Commissioner Cawthorn,
Yes.
Commissioner Gage Watts,
Yes.
Commissioner Talaferro,
Yes.
Commissioner Atkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Chavez,
Yes.
Commissioner Lazarus,
Yes.
and Commissioner Epperson.
Yes.
Motion carries with 12 in favor.
Thank you, Mr. Epperson. Moving along.
Okay, so we move to the original motion, which is just, I'll restate what I just stated, the send direction to governor to direct the order to allow for partial Zoom participation in public meetings. Motion by Commissioner Epperson and second by Commissioner Atkins. Do I have that correct?
No, we actually have to vote on that under resolutions later in the agenda.
I'm sorry, I'm just asking for clarification if I heard the motion correctly.
Yes.
You're acting for impossibility too. I'll comment on that later.
Okay, public comments are next, and we do have one public comment that's been submitted. Would you like me to go ahead and read that now?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Epperson.
Okay, John Glover sent in a public comment via email and would like me to read these statements. She says, number one, 11.2 authorized resolution 34 of 2020. What are the certain exceptions that are being addressed via resolution 34 for 2020? Her second item says 11.4 authorized resolution number 36 of 2020. Why this resolution 36 of 2020 altogether? What purpose will it address? If there is no pandemic quarantine, why ask for an extension beyond the normal time that polling places are to be closed? A plan definitively needed should such occur, but I'm a bit apprehensive if this can or will be used for other than its intended purpose, i.e. using the approval to circumvent regular guidelines. And then her third item is 11.5, authorized resolution of number 37 of 2020. What violations, if any, has prompted resolution 37 of 2020? Specifics, please. And those are all of the public comments that we've received.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. We do have a phone call right now that's just come in.
Okay.
Deputy Nations, can you connect the caller?
Yes, one moment, please. Hey, Linda, is she still on the line? Okay, all right, thank you. She disconnected again, so she's not back. She's not on the line. We have no more citizens' comments.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, moving along to visitors.
Next order of business.
Yeah, we're at visitors, and there's 6I is the, can y'all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
There's a scheduled to hear from a representative from LSU HSC. I did receive word that representative may have had a procedure that they had to do and has asked to reschedule that. So that brings us to the second one, which is Dr. Martha White.
All right, good morning, Ms. White. Thank you for joining us today. Host, if we can unmute her.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes. All right. Ms. White, thank you for joining us. We wanted to get your medical opinion on, where we're at with COVID, what your opinion is on us getting back to government chambers. What precautions would you recommend? Have you seen what's going on there? We'll have Dr. Wilson's staff speak on the precautions that they've done underneath the administration reports, but we wanted to get your expert opinion as you're the medical professional for our parish.
So I think that your members have made some very, put forward some very good questions as to what's been done directly to minimize their contact. I think that the partitions are helpful for protecting yourselves from each other, as well as wearing a mask. I'm not clear as to whether y'all are proposing having the public there. And if you did that, you would have to definitely do that in a way where you can minimize the number of people there. And if they're going to speak to you, they're going to have to wear a mask. And people don't like wearing a mask, and when they're out and doing their own thing, that's one thing. But when they're attempting to, for example, enter a hospital or enter a place where there's a large group of people, we can say that they need to wear a mask, or they can come to another meeting when things have relaxed some. So if they're going to speak, they really should protect you guys and the people around them, because we do know that as we project, we're more likely to spread that virus. The louder we speak, the more passionate we are about something, the more likely we are to, project particles out of our mouth. And that way we would want to make sure that you're protected. Now, the distance between you and them is pretty significant. So the likelihood of them getting those particles to you is very low. But I would also be leery of the people that are, that are surrounding them more closely. So it would have to be, you'd have to look at how you staggered people sitting in the waiting area. I do agree that they should have to be screened for temperature, and also, we have specific questions that we suggest people ask, like not only taking their temperature, but have you taken any medications today? Do you have any of these specific symptoms? The idea of knowing whether they're negative when they enter the room, not really going to help you, because what we know about negative tests is that only says you're negative for that point in time. You could pop positive that afternoon, the next day. It doesn't really mean that you haven't been exposed. It just meant that at the time you got tested, you didn't have enough of the virus to have a positive test. So that doesn't help you a lot, except for people, for example, like my husband, who's recovered. They were positive and are now negative. That tells you something. I feel strongly that people who have significant health issues need to have a way to protect themselves. You can do that a great deal on your own by wearing your mask, keeping your distance, and safeguarding yourself. But you need to make sure that you do have ways to protect them.
Mr. President, just point of clarification, but to you, I don't have to address the visitor. I can do it through you. I can do it through you.
Dr. White that's with us. Sorry, for calling you Miss White, Dr. White.
That's okay.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Brown.
Mr. Chairman, if you would ask the visitor, I don't know if we have an opportunity to speak directly. I'm not sure about your protocol yet. I'm still learning it. But anyway, the issue that Commissioner Johnson addressed, which is based upon a report that I saw either from China or from Italy, where the where the circulation system, the air conditioning system within the a particular restaurant actually picked up the virus and transported it to other places. How do we address that? Have we checked our circulation system within that in there? The other point is Dr. White's husband, which I'm sure he's probably not in the senior citizen area, and he happened to be not among the population that has been identified as being more susceptible. So that means that you and others who are not within that population also is subject to develop this virus. And I can assure you, it can be very deadly. Just ask the actress, I was trying to remember her name. Her husband just got his legs cut off and other conditions because of this. And I don't think that we are taking this as serious as we should, simply because we want the public to come and say hello and give their comments, in which they have that opportunity anyway. I'm just cautioning us, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner. And to that question, whenever we do have visitors come to the chamber, we are able to ask them questions. So absolutely, if you would like to get on the board and speak with Martha White and address anything, feel free.
What about
the LBJ?
Mr. Chairman, my question wasn't asked. I asked about the air conditioning situation. She addressed other issues, but she did not address the circulation based upon the example I gave.
I was addressing the first question you asked, if we were allowed to ask visitors questions. So the answer to that one is yes. In regards to the HVAC system and our HEPA filters and the micron levels of what they filter out, I'll yield that to Dr. Wilson and facilities. I know Dr. White doesn't have any knowledge of our specific filtration system at government chambers, but I know our facilities does. So we'll yield on that question until Dr. Wilson gets on the board under administration reports.
Well, and can I just say, sir, that, my husband was in the ICU for 47 days. He's 50 years old and has no health conditions, very healthy man. So you're correct that we all need to take this very serious. And if anyone takes it seriously, I do. I've witnessed it. I'm living it still to this day, trying to rehab him, just even to be able to walk and get back to work. There is no way to know who is going to get this virus and do well and who is going to get this virus and not do well. There are people who are 92 and lots of conditions and do just fine. And there are people like healthy who don't. The truth is, as we move forward, we're going to have to move forward in science and try to do the best that we can to protect each other and ourselves. And I feel like there ought to be an option. And I think that the best thing that you can do is, like you said, ask the governor for that waiver. I've asked my boss, Dr. BU, who speaks with him daily as well, to let me know whether that's something that's planned to be in the proclamation, or could it be put in the proclamation to allow the combination of meetings to protect those. I mean, even your public who don't feel like they can possibly come. I do feel like as leaders, I try to lead out of science and not out of fear, which is hard sometimes, having lived it. But I do want to say that the more that we can show them the proper way to do things and the best way to do things, I think that that's a good step that we can make. I don't want anyone to make that and put themselves at risk, but I do think that we just need to be cautious and be careful and give people options.
Well, again, I just wanted to make sure that we're doing it out of science and not out of politics. I don't have a problem with the fear part, but I do have a problem with the politics part. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Dr. White, I believe I have Vice President Johnson on the board to speak.
Okay, I'm basically finna come in and start asking questions. So this would be going to Dr. White or Dr. Wilson and staff. So first question is, do we have an established protocol for the commissioners to come back into the chamber? That's the first one. And that's to Dr. Wilson.
Commissioner Johnson, we don't have a written protocol. We met with the city and we discussed, I guess, the way forward to try to make things better. And that's why you see the petitions in there. And then we blocked off a number of seats. Under the current governor directive, there was only 25% capacity. And that amounted to about 23 seats in the audience, a total of 45 seats overall with those, counting those on the horseshoe. Also, let me address the air conditioning system, which is maintained by the city of Shreveport. But I do have extensive knowledge about HVAC systems because I'm a licensed contractor and have been for many years. And I spent most of my Air Force career in the HVAC business. So, but I can tell you there's no biohazard filtration system that it currently exists in the entire building. The only filtration system we have as such is located in animal services. And we went to a great length to try to filter out biohazards within the air because of airborne illnesses among animals down there. But there's no such system that exists in the chamber area. You would have recirculated air to a certain degree. A lot of that air is mixed with outside air, but there's no way to reassure you that you will not be exposed to recirculated air, okay? The system is not set up for that. Also, with the, we did put in place temperature scanners for people coming into the chamber. Out front, persons would have to go by this device that we had purchased and set up that will automatically sense body temperatures for people coming in. What we don't do is ask people the historical history of where they've been, who they've been around, would they've been out of town. We don't ask those protocols. They have not been established. What has been established is also everybody coming into the building must wear a mask, but we have not set that protocol in other than for visitors in the chamber, because we have to decide whether commissioners will have to wear masks. And we have not developed that protocol yet, but we need to. And also, as you can probably see, there's no plexiglass in front of each station. And that was done because they thought the distance between the podium and where you sit is over 12 feet. So, but there is no protective barrier between you and the frontal part and the podium. So that's something we would have to address if the commission so desire. But I think with the new directive that the governor put in place, now we're moving to 50% capacity. That's going to bring in even more people in the chamber. And if the limit right now is 23, you can double that to 40 to 46. But you know, we get to set those parameters, but we have not yet done so. Okay, so I think I try to address most of your questions for you. If there's anything that I fail to address, please let me know and I will.
Oh, okay. I'm finna come back at you.
Yes, sir. Right.
So I would like to have a copy. I know you did a protocol for the employees to come back to the parish to come
Yes,
to work.
sir, we did.
I would like to see a protocol for the commissioners to come back into the chamber, which would cover basically how the public will be coming in. Will they have to wear masks? And things of that sort, and how the people are tested coming in, just like you just got to talking about. I would like to see all that in writing, so that if we go back into the chamber and we see something that's not right, then there's no going back and forth with it. It's already in black and white. We have it covered on our protocols.
Okay.
All right. Dr. White, how far does that virus float? If someone is talking or someone is excited or screaming or coughing. You're muted.
Sorry. There is a difference in whether we're just talking like this. That's where they say the 6 feet, and we try to keep that minimal distance.
Right.
If someone is truly projecting, what they found is up to 12 to 14 feet, where it's not like all of your secretions out of your mouth don't travel that far, but there is that potential to travel that far.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
So, Dr. Wilson,
yes, sir.
I know the city kind of took the lead on preparing the chamber for, I guess, the city council, pretty much.
Yes, sir.
I don't know if they had buy-in from the commission or not.
Yes, sir. We met with them and discussed certain parameters.
Okay, was there any, I guess, safety or health professional that was involved in this committee? Or was this just ideas from the city and you guys?
Well, just basically ideas among us, no professionals sitting on that discussion. But we were trying to follow the protocols that were being put out by the medical community at the time we had the discussion.
Okay.
In terms
So,
of
all right. So just listening to Dr. White on that particular deal, if someone is basically raising their voice or coughing or whatever, that virus can run from 12 to 14 feet, which the podium, there's no screen on the podium. So somebody could still stand at the podium, get projections in their voice, and that virus still hit the president, the parliamentarian right in the face because we're straight ahead. So I think that there should be some type of plexiglass put in front of the podium or between all of that or in front of all of us. And then the part about the mask, you say the public is supposed to wear masks inside of the building?
Yes, sir.
Is that also inside of the chamber?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so would that also mean that the commissioners will have to wear masks inside of the chamber?
Personally speaking, we haven't got any medical guidance on that, but I would think would be in the best interest of it if we did do that.
Okay. And you did say that the seats are blocked off for the 25% capacity.
Yes, sir.
All
Yes,
right.
sir.
And you do have the machine that will detect the temperatures of
Yes,
people
sir.
coming in.
Yes, sir.
All right. All right. And
Dr. Wilson, I can send you a picture. We had an issue in a chicken farm processing plant, and you can only imagine how close those people are. And the way they did their plexiglass between them, but they also hung just down the front, a row of plexiglass down the line. Do you see what I'm saying? So it was protecting them from the people across them. If you want to see that picture, just to kind of see how they did it, that
Yes,
might
ma'am.
give you an idea.
Okay, I would really appreciate that, Dr. White, if I could see those pictures.
Yes, sir. I'll send it to you.
Yes, ma'am.
and
Thank
then
you.
I would also like to see on the return air. I know there should be a filter on the return air.
Yes, sir. We have there's pleated filters on the return ear, but there's no biohazard system because that's electronically done.
Okay.
Yes,
Well,
sir.
I would like to see that those filters are changed on a regular basis and documentation of such.
Yes, sir. Well, we will have to get with the city of Shreveport because they maintain the system, sir. But we'll try to inquire to see how often they do it. And these filters are washable filters that they use, metal mechanical filters that they can wash.
All right. So do they protect you from any type of
Nothing
virus, bacteria?
Nothing that we currently have will protect you from a virus flowing through that system, sir.
Okay.
That's the question.
Okay. That's what I was asking.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I'm to the point that there are no stupid questions. So I know I see some commissioners shaking their head and all that kind of stuff, but to me, there are no stupid questions. You ask the question, you get an answer. If you don't ask the question, to me, that's the part of being stupid because you're not even trying to find out what the true answer is. You're going by whatever somebody might say. So, I hate that y'all had to sit through this, but at the same time, I want to know the answers to these questions because evidently some people don't want to ask the questions and they feel comfortable with whatever they got. So I'm good with it.
What? I'm sorry. Go. I
Go
didn't.
ahead on, Dr. White. I was going to ask a
One
point of
thing I wanted
clarification.
to let you know, that even though the air will filter a certain level, but if you wear a true mask and, you can't necessarily force, everybody to buy an N95, but I can make sure that you all have N95s that will filter anything that's coming towards you as well as anything that you are putting out. I can definitely supply y'all with multiple sets of, enough masks for y'all to wear them and change them when they get soiled. That's not a problem for us to do that for you. I do think it is vital that you have people who are speaking to you wear a mask of some sort of facial covering. Now they may wear like a cloth mask, or the things that people put around their faces. Those are probably about 70% effective, so they're not going to protect you as well as so that's why I would suggest that you wear an N95. We recommend that people wear even the surgical mask, or the mask that you can get at Lowe's. But if they choose to wear the more comfortable cloth mask, I always remind them it's not fully protective, and to still make sure you're keeping your distance. If that would help, I'm happy to provide that for you.
Yes, ma'am. I sure appreciate you doing that.
Yes, sir, we can do that.
Another point of clarification, Mr. Chairman, to Dr. White.
Yes, sir, Mr. Burrell. Or would you like to get on the board? I have Commissioner Atkins and then Jackson, and then I can put you on there.
That'll be fine, sir. I don't have a problem in following orders.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Atkins, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Dr. White. I realize that you're in the risk mitigation business, and our safety is your highest concern, and you are making recommendations that you think are best for our safety with respect to the coronavirus. But I feel that there's also other types of risks out there. Would you agree that there are increased health risks and mental health risks associated with unemployment? She's muted.
I do believe that this virus is causing a lot of collateral damage. We can recover from financial instability. We can't recover if we die. So I have to put the risk of death and severe illness above that. But yes, that is, of course, a vital concern to, I think, anyone who's in this community.
But wouldn't you agree that suicide, there's a higher correlation of suicide to unemployment and poverty and mental anguish?
I think, and isolation as well. Yes.
So, and again, I'm not trying to be disrespectful here in any way. I just think it's important that we look at all the risks involved and recognize that this is not just a health risk, it's an economic risk, and it's a social risk, and there is, as Dr. White said, collateral damage associated with the other aspects of this pandemic, such as increased unemployment, increased mental depression, increased poverty. So those are the reasons why I'm pushing for us to remain careful in our actions, but move forward, open up our economy, open up our community. Thank you, Mr. President.
Commissioner Jackson.
Mr. President.
Yes, sir, Commissioner.
Mr. President.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Burrell.
Do I have the permission?
He said, go ahead, Roy.
Oh, okay, because I'm not hearing him. Well, I'm glad, Commissioner. I'm glad, Commissioner.
I was on first, I thought.
Yeah, you are Commissioner Jackson. I didn't know. I was going to see what Commissioner Burrell needed. Commissioner Burrell, would you yield to Commissioner Jackson? He's on the board next to me.
I don't think you got a choice.
I don't guess it's going to be one of those calls for the question, would it?
Look, my suggestion was going to be that I think we had that chamber subcommittee. Let's get that chamber subcommittee group together. They get together and put a plan together. The noise that I hear being talked about right now about suicide and all that, we getting all into this political bravado. We ain't got time for that. Let's move on with our meeting. They have a chamber subcommittee. Some folks had some questions about health risk. Those are legitimate questions, but to sit here and play this, my talking points about suicide and the folks who actually saying that are the first ones to vote against anything that helps anybody. So let's make sure we let's just move on down the road. Get the chamber subcommittee. We had that in place for a reason. Let them meet either by a conference call or by Zoom, and let them come up with a plan with administration, with the mayor, and whoever else uses the chamber. And let's put this issue to rest. I think we're beating a dead horse here, going back and forth about this.
Mr. President.
Well said, Commissioner Jackson. Commissioner Brown.
Since Commissioner Jackson did mention that, I do support that. But going back to Commissioner Atkins' concerns, I still fail to understand how your social conditions, economic conditions, suicidal isolation, and mental depression for not showing up in the chamber. I'm not sure what does that have to do with us having a meeting? We take care of our economics. For one thing, we don't have to deal with the mental depressions that's there unless they are there to just chew us out and maybe they feel better. All of this that I've heard so far, it still appears to come back to us having concern for the public not being able to come before us and express their views. I think they are expressing their views more so by either calling or email or whatever, because they are able to put their thoughts down in writing, and it can be succinct instead of, all over the place. So I'm only saying this, and I'm through with it, that all the things that were addressed, social, economic, suicidal, blah, 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 I don't think it has anything to do with our safety in the chamber. We are taking care of the business of the people. And we can cover all of these issues, by not having to be at risk. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Brill. Last I have is Commissioner Atkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. It all boils back to this chamber discussion because to me, and remember, we all have different views here. Just because my view isn't the same as yours doesn't mean that I'm any more or less correct than you. But let's remember, to me, showing a presence in the commission horseshoe, showing back up, engaging in regular activities, all that's important to me, in my view, to us showing the community and the people moving beyond the virus and trying to reestablish a normal life pattern, which I feel is much more healthy for our individuals, our families, and our community and our businesses. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I see no other commissioners on the board. Dr. White, I know you've been obviously one of the hardest hit of anybody on this Zoom meeting with your husband getting sick, and thank you for not only tending to him, but also tending to Caddo Parish and everything else. You've been tireless in your work for the commission and for the people of Caddo Parish. So thank you for coming on today and for everything that you do for us. I really appreciate you. I want you to know that. Mr. Everson, we move on.
I'm on the board. I guess you can't see me, Mr. President.
I'm sorry, Stormy. I did not see you. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask Dr. White. First of all, thank you for coming on our Zoom call today to provide some information to us. But I also wanted to ask you in reference to the last comments that were made, are there not larger organizations, much larger than ours, that are still hosting Zoom meetings to continue to practice social distancing when applicable? If there is a large setting of people, 12 of us that are sitting around that horseshoe closely, and even with the petitions and even with one in front of us, we're not enclosed into a glass or plexiglass, if you will. We still would be at risk if someone was to sneeze or cough and because we're not incubated at that time, is what I'm saying. So my question to you is, are there other organizations who are continuing to ask people to practice social distancing by meeting by Zoom, if possible?
You know, I can't answer to what all other organizations are doing. I can tell you that this is not the first conversation that I've had with a group of leaders trying to figure out how to get back to work and do it the most safely, you know, that they can. The best thing that's going to protect you if you're going to be in the presence of others is you wearing that mask and insisting that they wear a mask around you. That's truly the best thing that's going to protect you, even more than these plexiglass. We've considered that for my own staff and our health units. And you know, I don't want them to have those and think that that will protect them as opposed to wearing a mask.
Yes, ma'am. And I understand that. I have that clearly, that we need to wear a mask. But what I'm saying is the social distancing is still not there. When we will sit next to each other, we'll still be close to each other, even with that divider. We will still be in close proximity to one another. I think Caddo Parish School Board is announcing that they're going to Zoom meetings because we're not able to have a 50% capacity, as it should be announced on Friday, with us sitting there next to one another, because we wouldn't quite have a quorum, if you will. So if we would sit in a different area, if we were not sitting around the horseshoe, then we would have to sit in another area to actually be able to practice social distancing.
You know, I'm not in that office and I'm not, you know, in that building with you. And I think it's important, like Stephen said, to pull that group together and really look at what you have in front of you and make those decisions based on square footage and all of those things. That you may be absolutely correct. It may be that you need some, you know, a different space, or that you need to stay with Zoom as an option. But I do think
thank you
addressing, you know,
yes,
in the room itself.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
That's all, Mr.
Okay.
President.
Thanks, Stormy. Dr. White, before you leave, I received a message from a constituent. Is there a shortage of masks, or are they still able to be obtained?
There should not be shortages of masks. Even our, I was just on a call with our providers, even in their offices, and their flow of PPE has reopened. So even in those settings where they're at the strictest type, they're able to get what they need. You should be able to find masks. And if there's an issue, if y'all will let me know, then we can guide y'all to some vendors that perhaps you can help people with.
Okay, thank you, Dr. White.
Yes, sir.
Commissioners, I see no one else on the board unless you want to wave at me, and I'm sure Dr. White has other things to attend to today, specifically a husband. Dr. White, again, thanks for coming.
Glad to hear that he's doing well.
Thank you. Thank you. He's a miracle. Y'all take care. Have a good day.
Bye, Doctor. Mr. Everson?
Yes, thank you. We move on to reports. And at this point in time, I'd like to draw your attention to the fact that the certificate for teleconference is attached. And we have the administrator report.
Hey, good morning, Commissioners. The only thing the administration has today is to make sure that you all have received a report from LSU Health Science Center on the questions that were asked at our subsequent meeting about the outcomes and success of the mobile COVID testing that you all funded. And we sent each one of you all an electronic copy of that. And other than that, we don't have anything else, but we will move forward to try to set the meeting up, the chamber subcommittee meeting up, to develop some procedures and protocols to let you all review and going forward on how we would operate within the chamber.
Mr. President, a point of clarification.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Brill.
I just want to make sure that based upon what Commissioner Epperson mentioned before, we still didn't clarify whether or not there can be a mixed meeting without losing the opportunity and the right to certain people's district to be represented and to vote. I think we are overshadowing that situation, and if the chamber can, if the chamber committee can address that too, because it's not addressed in your resolution.
Commissioner Burrell, I'll take that really quick, and then Commissioner Epperson, I do see you. I have a feeling we're going to vote today on Commissioner Epperson's agenda addition, and it will probably pass unanimously. And with that being said, I will take that information as your president to move forward with how we should conduct our meeting for tomorrow, and then allow our chamber committee to get together and give us some information so that we can go forward from there.
Well, my question didn't have anything to do with the Thursday meeting because we're going to be on Zoom. My concern is the fact that we can't have a mixed meeting that has not been addressed.
I understand. We will have to wait for the governor to give us a response on that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Burrell. We move on to Commissioner Epperson.
Dr. Wilson.
Yes, sir.
And I guess Jeff and the commission clerk staff. It bothers me. We've been meeting on Zoom a couple of times that we don't have something standard and written as to how our constituents and the procedures for when we have a Zoom meeting. Is there anything on the website giving the protocol for a Zoom meeting? We have a meeting, you got to stop and you got to give the phone number and you got to try to hook up with somebody. We are at a point with the amount of people that we have in place and the job that they hold, we should not be that inconsistent. And that needs to be rectified. You should have a plan for basically anything that comes up.
Yes, sir, Commissioner. We do have the protocol posted, and we posted. There are several ways that people can access the Zoom meetings, so they can do it through the Facebook page or through the website. It's posted in both of those places, and we do try to get that posted even in the comments during the meeting, just to make sure that people, you can't rely that they'll see it in one place. So we try to put it out there in multiple places.
Are we contacting the media with protocols aggressively? They come up, they report all the negativity, but we need to up that game.
Yes, sir.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner Epperson. Commissioner Atkins, did I see you wave your hand? No? Okay. I see no other commissioners on the board underneath administration reports. So we move along to commission reports, communiques, reports, and other items related to the work session agenda. Commissioner Cawthorn, go ahead and kick us off. We got to mute. Host, can you unmute Commissioner Cawthorn?
Deputy Clerk Nations is.
Can you hear me now?
That's better. We got you.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Good morning, Commissioner. This has been an interesting dialogue so far this morning. And I guess there's no secret that there is an ideological divide between this commission body, this state, and perhaps this nation, which doesn't mean that it's something that can't be resolved. I actually am very interested in the comments that Commissioner Atkins made today as it relates to the suicide piece, the unemployment, all the anxieties associated with that. And as he can probably remember, the United Way came before us about a year ago with that Alice report, and they gave a breakdown of your concerns in everyone's commission district, maybe last year before last. And it's interesting that you bring those comments up and those dynamics up. I think what we need to do in this juncture, as we see civil unrest all around the nation, is to see whether or not we as a commission body can resolve our issues in the tradition of Tip O'Neill and Ronald Reagan. In the days when we could come to the table and say, we agree to disagree, but here's some middle ground. In addition to the committee that we're talking about for the chamber and the seating distance and the social distancing, also we need to come to the table and discuss those things that Commissioner Atkins just brought up. Because at the end of the day, people that Mr. Atkins represent are concerned about opening up this economy, and people that Commissioner Epperson represents are concerned about the safety of people who are predisposed to this virus. So where's the middle ground? I think in addition to doing the committee for the chamber, we need to also do an ad hoc committee where we discuss how do we as a commission body, with the opportunity to have reimbursable expenses, how do we work collectively as a community to resolve the concerns on the right and resolve the concerns on the left. And so I don't know how we accomplish that, Mr. Chairman, but I'm suggesting an ad hoc committee. And while we have the ability to reimburse expenses at this juncture, how do we work collectively to achieve both concerns on the left and concerns on the right? That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Very well said, Commissioner Cawthorn. Commissioner Jackson, Senator Atkins.
Yeah, I was just going to note, I don't know if we passed it, I had to get up and leave, but Dr. Weinberger had a procedure and was not able, I think he's in, he is in the operating room today and tomorrow. So he was prepared to be with us on Monday, but he will not be able to join us today or tomorrow. He was the person who was slated to present all the information and data and break all that down and synthesize it for us. So just wanted to put that out there. And so at the appropriate time, I guess we could just pass over that if we hadn't already got to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Jackson.
Mr. President, for Commissioner Jackson, is that in addition to the questions that we sent forward?
I mean, I really and truly, some folks wanted questions, some folks want people to come down. And so we agreed to do both, to have them come as well as submit the questions. So I'm just noting that he won't be available to us today. You have to remember that these are researchers as well as professors, as well as they run clinics. I shouldn't have said operating room. They run clinics. Private.
Well, I was one of the ones who submitted. The question. I think Commissioner Epperson is the other person. I was very well satisfied with the answers that I got. If that's any help.
Right. Okay.
I see you, Commissioner Epperson. I'll put you on right after Commissioner Atkins.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to acknowledge Commissioner Cawthorn's statements. Commissioner Cawthorn and I have always been able to find middle ground. I appreciate him pointing out the importance of the middle ground. And I don't want anyone on the commission or who may be listening to think that I don't care about health and safety and that I don't think health and safety are important. Like Commissioner Cawthorn alluded to, it's kind of degrees of gray. And I may be more heavily weighted towards one end of the scale, and another commissioner may be more heavily weighted towards another end of the scale. But just because I point out the issues from one end of the scale doesn't mean that I don't see the other end of the scale as well. And I'll agree with Commissioner Cawthorn. It's important to find a balance between the two. I'm just seeking some balanced perspective. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner Atkins. Commissioner Epperson.
Yes, I just wanted to commend the administration. I submitted, they submitted written questions that I had given to them, and I was very well pleased with the answers. They were, the staff at LSU were very articulate. The graphs and the charts and the Excel spreadsheets, very, very helpful information. So I'm completely satisfied. And I also just like to remind all of us, mental health, poverty, health issues did not just start in March. I recall the time that we had a mental health facility in Pineville, Louisiana. We had veterans killing themselves suicidally between 25 and 30 a day. So this pandemic did not just bring in economic despair and business failures and things of that nature. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Epperson. I see no other commissioners on the board unless somebody would like to get on the board, please wave. If not, we'll move along.
Moving on to President's report.
Yield for tomorrow. Thank you, Mr. Epperson.
Okay, that takes us to old business. Our first item tonight is to authorize Resolution 28 of 2020. It's a resolution to amend the Caddo Parish Commission bylaws to require a formal request for commission appropriations to entities not part of Caddo Parish government and to otherwise provide with respect thereto.
Move to approve and lay over 2 weeks.
Second.
I got a motion by Commissioner Hopkins, seconded by Commissioner Epperson. Commissioner Hopkins, would you like to speak on your motion?
The committee met and came up with a couple of additions, exclusions. So I think everybody felt comfortable at that point with this resolution.
Thank you, Commissioner Hopkins. I see no other commissioners on the board. Mr. Epperson, roll call vote.
Okay, Commissioner Hopkins.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson. Sorry, I didn't hear if he responded.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay, Commissioner Young. I'm also not hearing.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Young. Commissioner Burrell.
Yeah.
Commissioner Cawthorn.
Yes.
Commissioner Gage Watts.
Yes.
Commissioner Taliaferro.
Yes.
Commissioner Atkins.
Yes.
Commissioner Chavez.
Yes.
Commissioner Lazarus.
Yes.
And Commissioner Epperson.
Yes.
All right, motion carries with 12 in favor and no other votes.
Thank you, Mr. Epperson.
Okay. That brings us to new business. First item under new business is authorized introduction of ordinance 5959 of 2020. It's an ordinance amending the budget of estimated revenues and expenditures for the oil and gas fund for the year 2020 to provide an appropriation for the purchase of masks to combat COVID-19 and to otherwise provide with respect thereto.
So move.
Second.
I got a motion by Commissioner Stormy Watts and seconded by Commissioner Epperson.
I said Morel.
Mr. Watts, would you like to speak on your motion?
That was
Watts,
Morel. That was
would
the
you like
other
to speak on your
Epperson.
motion? That was Burrell. I'm sorry, Commissioner Burrell.
Yes, I would. Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, I would like to speak on it. Commissioners, this ordinance is to help mitigate the spread of COVID-19 in Caddo Parish by allocating at least another 12,000 masks, which will be fabric masks to the citizens of Caddo Parish. This, along with proper hand washing, hand sanitizing, physical distancing, or proven methods takes time. This is one of the most important initiatives of public emergency. This package to include educational information from the CDC about the proper use of masks and their removal, as well as proper disposal to prevent them from tossing to the ground or into the trash can improperly, which would pose an additional risk for infection. This initial effort would be to allow each commissioner the opportunity to educate and protect their constituents, which would be all of our constituents individually and collectively. There has been 155 deaths in Caddo Parish in 8 weeks during this pandemic, and according to the data from the CDC, it is recommended and encourage that each person wear a cloth mask while in public. So I ask commissioners to please support this initiative. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Watt. I see no other commissioners on the board. Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Atkins. Okay, I see a couple. Commissioner Atkins and then Talaferro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm not opposed to the spirit of this resolution. I just after hearing from Dr. White, I'm wondering if there's a need for additional masks, and would we need to buy them all at once, or could we just allocate some funding and have it available for additional masks if they are required?
Mr. President, is that a question to me, or is it just a general question, Commissioner Atkins?
Mr. President, I will address that question either to Commissioner Gage Watts or to administration, whoever is better suited to answer it.
Yes, I will start by answering, and I will invite administration to be able to speak as well. I'm sure that they will have some comments also. I think that, yes, we will need additional masks. There is expected a second wave to come, and there will be a shortage of masks. We're going to make sure, of course, that the medical industry has the proper PPE in place first. So as those numbers rise, and they probably will rise sooner, in reference to a lot of things that are going on in the world right now. And I think that 12,000 is a minimum ask for us at this time, because that will not provide each person with a mask, but that will give us a start to add to the addition of what Haynes has already provided for the citizens of Caddo Parish, which was a little less than a fourth of what we needed. However, we can also be reimbursed through the CARES Act, I'm sure, about purchasing these masks.
Okay, just a clarification, Commissioner Gage Watts, you had warbled out previously. Are you proposing we just buy 12,500 masks at this time?
Yes, sir. That's all at this time.
And what's the cost of that roughly?
I'll yield to administration.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm driving. If I'm fading out, I'm driving.
You stay safe, Commissioner Watts. Dr. Wilson, do you know, or
Yes.
I don't know if Valerie's on this call, but do you know the cost of the 12,500?
Yes, sir. Let me defer to Erica on that. Erica, because we've been looking at the cost of the mask at a much higher volume. So Erica, could you answer that? I think the amount is 12,000 now. Is that correct?
Yes, commissioners. The state has obtained quotes for masks from various vendors, and the costs range from like $1.50 per mask to up to $4 per mask, depending on the vendor. So if 12,500 at $2 will be 25,000, we can, this appropriation would go through December 31st. So we could purchase additional masks as needed in order, as Commissioner Gage Watts talked about, in order to be prepared for that second wave should it happen. And so we could purchase the initial distribution and still have the funds available if we need to purchase masks in the future. And we would ask for reimbursement. Obviously, we would not know until we submit that, but we would ask for reimbursement from the CARES Act.
Thank you. That sounds like a reasonable level. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
want a clarification. I want to know, does this purchase have to go out on state bid? Because Haynes was so generous to provide the first ones, and I assume that they were adequate. I know that in my district, I have people that are of low economic means, and there may be masks available out there to purchase, but there are other things that like food and other things of that nature, and disinfectants and what have you, that they are having to buy under this circumstance here. So I'm concerned about those that are not able to go out on the market, even if they are there. And let me tell you, out on the market, people are being gouged for masks. That's just the American way, I guess. That's capitalism. But at the same time, I know when I gave out a lot of these masks over in the district, people were so grateful, especially our elderly, that we thought enough of them to provide them because they were afraid. They didn't know where to get them, how to get them, and whether they could afford them. So that's the reason I'm supporting Commissioner Gage Watts on this, that the parish does something to back up its citizens on this situation, especially since we can get reimbursed. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. I'll save that question and refer it to our purchasing agent after this. I have Commissioner Talaferro and then Hopkins, Cawthorn, and Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, I just wanted to kind of echo the sentiments of Commissioner Atkins. I'm okay with the commission doing its fair share, its part, and I appreciate Commissioner Gage Watts bringing this to our attention. I'm not opposed to initially purchasing the 12,000 masks, as I understand it, based on getting the purchase price and so forth. I think in the future the purchase price probably will go down, so which gives us an opportunity to revisit an additional purchase price should we need that in the future. I think, as you well know, that many are already exercising their right to wear or not wear a mask, or to wear something other than I say COVID-19 approved mask, as Dr. White has told us about. So I'm good with the initial purchase of the 12,000, and give us the opportunity to revisit it if we need further purchases. Thank you.
Yes, I'd like to amend this ordinance to say $100,000 instead of the $300,000 currently in the ordinance, up to $100,000. If I could get a second.
Second. I'll second that.
Would you like to speak on that motion?
Okay, and let me say, I'm not against providing masks. We did testing and stuff for $175,000. We started out at 300, and we worked down to a number that was, I think, reasonable. I'm just afraid of putting out $300,000. We may only spend $36,000. We might spend $300,000. We don't know, but I would like to have a limit of $100,000. And if it gets that bad, then we can come back and look at this again. But at this time, I think a 100,000 would be a sufficient number. Thank you.
Commissioner Hopkins, Commissioner Cawthorn.
Yes, I think my question was answered. I just want to redress it to Ms. Bryant. Is this a reimbursable cost under the guidelines by the state with the expenses related to COVID?
Yes, sir. Based on our understanding of the guidelines, it is a reimbursable cost. And also in regards to the question that was asked about the bid requirement, the state has already bid this out, so we can just go with the state contract bid. We wouldn't have to do another bid as long as we use what they've already done.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Cawthorn, Commissioner Jackson.
Is it on me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Commissioner Jackson.
Yeah, I just wanted to know if these are reusable or are these disposable surgical masks?
Commissioner Jackson, I think the situation is going to be, Ms. Bryant may be able to answer this. We would have to go with the state contract on one of those options. So if we allocate the funds, we can either choose the $1 mask or the $4 mask.
No, I'm sorry. I was trying to ask whether masks, do we know if the masks were reusable or disposable?
Reusable.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to check on. And just want to also point out, I'm always talking about being consistent. I just want to point out that this is no different. A lot of people gave me a hard time about the testing. This is no different than the testing where we are eligible for reimbursement on it. And so hopefully some folks see that, you know, it's one and the same. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Jackson. Commissioner Brewer, are you on the board?
No, I've made my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Brewer. I show you and Talafer and LBJ still with their hand up. Talafer, you did speak. Commissioner Johnson, go ahead.
Thank you.
Mr. President, oh, I'm sorry. You're right.
I think with the substitute motion, we have a problem with the body of the ordinance because it still talks about the purchase of 245,000 masks. And if you cut the money down to 100,000, you won't be able to buy 245,000 masks. So I think you have to amend that whole part of it if you're gonna do one part and the other part. Just for point of clarification on that. And yeah, Commissioner Jackson, there are some similarities and there are some differences between this and the other one as well. But I just think that if we're in this role that we're providing a lot of services for the parish of Caddo, overwhelmingly everybody feels that we should have our heartbeat in the testing. We should also have our heartbeat in preventive measures as well. So the majority is happy with that. Is happy with that. I'm cool with that too. I was never against the testing, and this was at the dollar amount. That was my whole concern and my own point. Even with this one, the 300,000, that's still quite a bit. But there is a substitute motion to amend that. But I think you also have to amend the part to purchase the 245,000 masks as well, because it's just a mismatch. So if you do the dollar for whatever that is, $1 and something per which one, then I think it would match up. That's just my mathematical knowledge from being a graduate of Fat Park High School.
Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Hey, President Chavez, President Chavez, I think your access to go to acquire 12,500 masks. Is that correct? That's what the goal is.
Well, I think that was just starting out. I don't think that was just an initial purchase of 12,500. But the intent of Commissioner Watts, if I'm not mistaken, is not just to stop at 12,500. That was just to start out on the first order to get that many, and then order additional ones without having to come back to the body. Yeah, just like with Commissioner Jackson with the mobile testing, he wanted to have one big thing at one time and not have to come back to the body to say, well, we need to do some additional testing. So it's based on buying 12,500 initially, and then coming back and buying some more as the need progresses on that.
Okay.
I see Commissioner Hopkins on the board. I think he wants to maybe fix his motion. Commissioner Hopkins.
Yeah, well, basically we have, as of July 1st, 2019, we have 240,000 people in Caddo Parish. 22.4% is at or below the poverty line. So that would bring you to around 50,000, 55,000. So $100,000 to purchase 55,000 masks.
Second.
And that's basically $2 a mask.
I think that's still on the low side, right?
Yeah, it is on the low side, but we had to go with the state contract, and I think we suggest we stick with that because that's probably gonna be our best price for the mask.
$2 a mask? That's kind of high. Shit.
Yeah,
no, not now. It's not.
No, you pay
the man.
As much as $4.
This is not a disposable mask, Roy. This is one that's a cloth, washable.
Yeah, no.
Commissioner Johnson, you and I probably share the same in the mathematical education, but maybe we should have gone to where Commissioner Hopkins went. All right, I got I see Attorney Frazier. She wants to make a comment on this. Go ahead, Ms. Frazier.
Commissioners, from what I'm hearing, basically you want to amend the dollar amount. So did you just want to amend the ordinance to allocate $100,000 for masks as needed, to be purchased as needed? And then that way you don't have to worry about the number of masks that will be purchased. And then once that money runs out, you can come back and make another allocation.
That would be fine from the maker of the amendment. Yes.
I'm just good, but I just know how sometimes we get stickler on words. And so I just wanted to make sure we were clear. But that's fine. I just wanted to make sure that we are clear on the words.
Sounds like we got everything sewed up on this motion. I still see a couple commissioners with their hands up. I just want to make sure that they had been left on there. Commissioner Jackson, did you still want to speak?
I just want to make sure, Todd, could I add a friendly amendment that it's that we equally distribute them, because that they be equally distributed throughout each district, I guess.
That's fine. Yeah.
Because I just wanted to make sure that, because the first mass distribution, my district got none. I just wanted to make sure that they're equally distributed throughout.
Hey, one second, Mr. Atkins. Commissioner Hopkins, were you okay with that friendly amendment?
That's fine. I mean, I think they're parish wide, so they should be available parish wide, meaning every district.
Right. And mine, the first giveaway, mine got none. Commissioner Atkins was friendly enough to loan me some, and Dr. Wilson was able to cobble up some, and we was able to give some out last Friday. So I just wanted to make sure nobody gets left out. So I'm good with everything else.
Commissioner Jackson and Hopkins. Commissioner Atkins.
Well, I think Commissioner Jackson and I have the same desire here, and that's to get masks to those who need them. And by distributing them across all the commission, I don't know that meets that goal of getting masks to those who need them. I don't have necessarily a solution, but maybe the administration would have a recommendation on how we could ensure that these masks get to those who most need them.
We can all have a town hall meeting, invite the public.
I see Dr. Wilson shaking his head yes, so that we'll try to achieve equal distribution of the masks. Commissioner Talaferro, I see your hand up. Did you want to speak?
No, Mr. President, I've taken care of my speaking. Thank you.
Gotcha. Commissioner Epperson, I do see that you would like to speak. Go ahead.
Call for the question on the motion.
Second.
All right, got a call for the question by Commissioner Epperson, second by Commissioner Jackson. Mr. Everson.
Okay, that's Commissioner Hopkins.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson.
Yes.
Commissioner Young.
Yes.
Commissioner Burrell.
Yes.
Commissioner Coffey.
Yes.
Commissioner Gage Watts.
Yes.
Commissioner Taliaferro.
Yes.
Commissioner Atkins.
Yes.
Commissioner Chavez.
Yes.
And Commissioner Epperson.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes with 12 in favor. And so that brings us to the substitute motion. And I want to make sure, please correct me if I heard this wrong. The sound has been in and out a little bit, but I want to make sure I understand. That is to amend the original motion to $100,000 to purchase 55,000 masks to be distributed to all districts.
Just leave the number of masks off and just 100,000 to purchase masks.
Okay. So that is to amend to 100,000 to purchase masks. And Commissioner Hopkins.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson. I'm not hearing.
He's muted.
Steven.
He's muted.
Yes.
Commissioner Young.
Yes.
Commissioner Barrett,
Yes.
Commissioner Cawthorn,
Yes.
Commissioner Gage Watts,
Yes.
Commissioner Talaferro,
Yes.
Commissioner Atkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Chavez,
Yes.
Commissioner Lazarus,
Yes.
and Commissioner Epperson.
Yes.
Okay, that amendment carries. Now we are on to the ordinance 5959 of 2020 as amended. Commissioner Hopkins,
Yes.
Hold on.
I mean, it basically passed as amended.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
yeah, okay.
Next
Yeah.
order.
So I'm sorry, I was going to call a vote for the for as amended, but have we already established that?
Yes.
We voted on it as amended.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we are on to resolution 34 of 2020, a resolution authorizing the administration to suspend 2020 NGO payments with certain exceptions and to otherwise provide.
Move to advance.
Second.
We got a motion to advance by Commissioner Vice President Johnson and a second by Commissioner Cawthorn. Commissioner Johnson, would you like to speak on your motion?
Discussion.
No more than the committee met and based upon some guidelines that we established, we set the parameters to fund some of the organizations that were basically suspended until we saw revenue streams coming back. Since that time, the casinos have opened back up again. And so I will be scheduling another meeting once we get about a 30-day look on how the attendance and the money is coming in to the Riverboat Fund.
Thank you, Commissioner. I see Commissioner Jackson, then Burrell, then Talaferro on the board.
Haley on.
Yes.
Salvation Army, they had some left over from 2019. Is that correct? Huh?
Yeah, I think she's calculating it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
They did, yes.
Mr. Jackson, did you hear her response? She said yes.
That's a lot of. Okay, I heard it. Do you know how much was left over from them?
Yeah, it is. They had from 2019. I'd have to pull their report to get an exact amount.
I think we were looking at about 30,000-ish. I know they had reached out to me wanting to roll some forward. So, I mean, I'll go along with moving this forward, but probably at final adoption, I'll ask for an amendment on the Salvation Army. I think if they got $25,000-$30,000 that they haven't spent in 2019, we should look out there and see if there's some other organizations that may be able to utilize those dollars at this immediate time, or just save that money. So just want to bring that to everybody's attention that I will propose that at the next meeting. Thank
Well,
you.
Mr. President.
Yes, sir, Commissioner.
Yeah, based upon that information, Stephen did talk to me about it, and I had forgot about it. But I'd like to amend my motion to move to advance, except for the Salvation Army.
No, I leave them out because I think I want to swap them out with somebody
In
else.
1 mile, turn left onto Independence Avenue.
Say that again. You was
I was going to just
Siri.
swap them out with somebody else at a later date.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I mean, you still can do that tomorrow.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
But just to move forward, what we got, I can amend it to take Salvation Army out based on that financial obligation that they have already received and they hadn't used.
So, just for clarification, you're gonna continue with your original motion, and Commissioner Jackson, and you will get with each other on the sideline, and tomorrow Commissioner Jackson can make a substitute motion.
I can't hear you, Mario. Mario, can you hear me?
I just want to clarify that. You're just going to stick with your original motion, Commissioner Johnson?
Yeah, I'm good with the original one. I mean, I just, you know, or if he wants to move them out now, but I'm, you know, at some point I just want to be brought to everybody's attention that we'll make the changes, or we can make them today. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I want to remove them because based upon that information, we can't grant them money, and they already got money that they hadn't utilized, and we're waiting on reports, so they can't get a CEA anyway.
All right.
All right, we got that on the floor. Commissioner Burrell.
So do I have a second on my amendment?
The chair will second that, Commissioner Johnson.
Okay.
Mr. Brown.
Mr. Chairman, I have 2 points of clarification. The first one is on something that was mentioned by Commissioner Stephen Jackson, because I want to be clear on it, because I have the Boys Club that's in my district too, the Boys Club portion of Salvation Army. And I met with them on the monies that they had in the budget. And it appears to me that money was approved before I got on the commission. It was approved, the money that Commissioner Jackson is talking about actually was approved in 2018 for 2019. That's my first point of understanding. I thought it was approved in 2019 for 2020. Can you clarify again, is that 2018 money that was approved then for 2019?
Commissioner Jackson, can you answer that question?
Okay.
I haven't looked at those financials.
Hello?
Yeah, Commissioner Boyle, I don't know if Commissioner Jackson can hear me, but I'll get you an answer for that before tomorrow's meeting, because I know we'll be voting on that tomorrow as well.
Okay, because the reason I'm asking that question is there was an appropriation. I assume there was an appropriation that was approved in 2019 for 2020, and COVID hit in 2020. So are those 2020 monies that has to be spent in 2020 included in this, or they being or they some money that's being considered not to be given to them too? So that'll be 2019 and 2020. That's basically my first question. You understand my question?
I do. Ms. Haley, I know you're on this call, or Ms. Barnett. Can you get us answers and email that to Commissioner Burrell and CC the rest of the commissioners before tomorrow's meeting?
And the second question I have to Commissioner Johnson, when we met in NGO, I understood that we would consider these appropriations to go forward with that limited number, but we would also look at it 2 months from now, from the time that we had had our meeting, for nonprofits to see what their progress were, so that we would consider either appropriating them their money, because they still have time in 2020 to spend those dollars. Am I not correct?
Yes. Basically, we did meet and we talked about that, hoping that the casinos would be open back up again And that was the part that I just got to talking about, that schedule another meeting. We also sent out those letters to the organization.
Maybe I need to ask Haley again, because
What
I know one of
missing now because of COVID-19. So yes, that's what we agreed upon.
I need to ask Haley too. Was there a set date on that? Because I got one of the nonprofits that I'm associated with did get a letter, but I don't remember seeing a date in which it has to be returned.
June 30th, I think.
It needs to be returned as soon as possible.
Yeah, if there wasn't a date given per se, but based on the letter and what was requested, it indicated that you've been suspended and we need to know an update of your program. So I've gotten a lot of responses back from those letters, not 100% response, but I have gotten a lot of responses back.
Well, normally that is the case when you don't set a deadline, and not I mean, that's not being critical. It's just sometimes that happens because they don't know when you're expecting it. And since then, we've gotten the next application for 2020 for 2020 for $2021. So okay, well that clarifies it, Dan. But still, we don't have a date on that for them to get it back, Haley.
Well, but the implication was get it back quickly if you would like for your money not to be suspended indefinitely.
But they don't know that we set a 2-month deadline from the time that we met. That's what I'm saying, and because that's the criteria that the committee established. Is that right, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
That's right.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. Hopefully they'll pick it up.
I have Talaferro on the board, but I do see Attorney Frazier. Jim, if you'll yield to her, I just want to see if she's got some legal advice that we need to know about.
No,
yes, sir. Go
Commissioner,
ahead.
I was going to respond to a point of clarification, but you've asked Haley to do that via email, and so I'll just withdraw mine.
But you know that answer. I was going to ask you to give that answer so we know it now, because I don't want nobody leaving here thinking it's something different.
Okay, here is the problem with the Salvation Army. The Salvation Army had 2019 funds. We do not have a completed report on those 2019 funds. So and they were also appropriated 2020 funds, but no 2020 funds will be expended. Say if we had not had COVID-19 in the normal process, they could not get 2020 funds until they've completed their 2019 report. As it stands right now, they may not have utilized all of the 2019 funds that they received. And so they will actually have to reimburse the parish what they did not use. And then the parish will proceed either as you direct today or if you direct later on in the year for them to get those funds.
Well, point of clarification on that matter. I spoke with the colonel for the Salvation Army, and I asked him why, because funds are very hard to come by, and I understand that they had gone through a transition where they had just moved in. They only took office, the new colonel, in 2019. So by the time they got the operation up, they fell back on some of the programs that they had to fund. So that's just a point of clarification on that. If you want to wonder why they had not expended those funds, is what I'm understanding from them.
Thank you, Commissioner Durant. Thank you, Attorney Frazier. Commissioner Talaferro.
Yes, Mr. President. I'm just I just want to be having some clarification as well, and maybe Ms. Barnett can answer some of these things. So I understand that if we're reevaluating funding for the Salvation Army, based on if they've spent all the money that they were previously allocated, shouldn't we be doing the same for the other 8 that we're currently thinking about funding. And I know that we have not received a report of any increasing revenue streams to my knowledge. And so we're basing, basing giving to NGOs on information we haven't received. And I think we agreed that we were going to give this a full couple of months or 3 months. And again, I don't recall us setting a timeline, but I just want to make sure that we're treating each one of our NGOs that we're considering funding, the same way. And if any one of these 8 or 9 have money that they have not used, and yet we're making proposals to give them additional funding, then I think everybody needs to be playing by the same rules, unless I'm not seeing this the way I'm seeing it. And that's all. I think if we're going to be asking one to provide us with documentation on money that they haven't used, shouldn't we be asking the same of the food bank and on counseling on aging? So, and maybe I need to be
Commissioner
corrected.
Talaferro, this is Attorney Frazier. I can address that. None of these organizations can receive funding until they are finished with their 2019 reporting, whether you are here today or not. So they all have to provide reports on funds and how they've spent them and reimburse any funds that have not been spent to the parish. They all have to do that.
Okay.
Before receiving any new funds.
Before receiving any new funds. And it's also my understanding that these on the agenda today are not additional funds. These are amounts that they had already been appropriated monies for 2019 for 2020 and have not received them. So it's my understanding that you're moving forward with what you've already appropriated, or a portion of what you've appropriated, not additional money.
And thank you, Attorney Frazier. I appreciate that. And I'm very supportive of that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Talaferro. Commissioner Jackson, I see you on the board.
You on mute?
Yeah, he's on mute.
I was only speaking to the Salvation Army, the Merkel Center, which was on there because that's in my district, and I'm aware of it. And so I don't know what the other organizations may have going on, but this my comments and my amendment, or Commissioner Johnson's amendment to remove them right now, is simply because I'm aware that because they wanted us to roll forward. I think that also needs to be stated is we can choose, they can either reimburse us the money or the commission can agree to roll forward their money. And prior to COVID-19 being shut down, we actually had legal and we were getting ready to present legislation to roll forward their 2019's money. So I want to say they have about $32,000 or $33,000 left over from the Merkel Center that they have not used. And that was because they indicated that they had a increase in private donations last year, which is not a bad thing. But our rules simply state that you have to expend your costs, and if you don't, whatever you don't expend, you have to repay it, or we either have to roll it forward. So right now they have $30-some thousand in commission funds that they can use for their operations. So I just want to bring that. So we're not saying that they've done anything wrong or they've not done anything. I just want to bring that to everybody's attention. Thank you.
Mr. President, on that same note, because I'm also dealing with Salvation Army, but I'm dealing with the Boys Club part because that's in my district.
So I'm not speaking about anything about the Boys and Girls Club.
I understand
it's not on the agenda. It's not on the agenda.
Thank you. I'm talking about the Merkel Center, not the Boys and Girls Club.
I understand that, Commissioner Jackson. I'm not questioning you. I'm just saying that I'm not clear on whether those are two different budgets. And as
the only thing on the agenda is the Merkel Center.
Okay, well, again,
they're two different ones, Roy.
Yeah, but please allow me, because I wasn't a part of your budget process. I'm just learning this, so I'm asking, not questioning you. I'm just asking questions that
we're just telling you, and we're telling you that is not.
Well, that's the reason why I'm asking.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, everybody, for the clarifications.
Commissioner Chavez, I do want to just clarify too that the monies that they did not expend last year are not rolled forward. They would have to be reappropriated by the commission in the current budget year.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification.
So Roy, if you want the Boys and Girls Club to get the money that they didn't spend last year, you're gonna have to make a motion and put some legislation together to have that to be considered by the full body.
At what point do I do that, Mr. Chairman?
You can do that before the next work session.
Okay, well,
If they ready for it.
Yeah, okay. Before the next work session, well.
If you need it soon, if you need it sooner.
Well, let me make it known now so I can put it on record to put together that legislation for me. Mr. Administrator.
And I see Ms. Bryant. She's acknowledged it. No more commissioners on the board. We will move forward with the vote. We're going to be voting on Commissioner Johnson's vote, or I'm sorry, his motion. Mr. Everson, roll call vote, please.
Yes, so we're voting on to advance resolution 34 with the exception of Salvation Army. Commissioner Hopkins.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson.
Yes.
Commissioner Young.
Yes.
Commissioner Burrell.
Yes.
Commissioner Cawthorn.
Yes.
Commissioner Gage Watts.
Yes.
Commissioner Taliaferro.
Yes.
Commissioner Atkins.
Yes.
Commissioner Chavez.
Yes.
Commissioner Lazarus.
Yes.
And Commissioner Epperson.
Yes.
Okay, that carries with 12 in favor. And our next item is authorized resolution number 35 of 2020.
Second.
Motion advanced by Commissioner Johnson and seconded by Commissioner Atkins. Commissioner Johnson, would you like to speak on that?
No.
All right. I see no commissioners on the board. Mr. Everson, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Hopkins.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson.
Yes.
Commissioner Young.
Yes.
Commissioner Burrell.
Yes.
Commissioner Cawthorn.
Yes.
Commissioner Gage Watts.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Taliaferro.
Yes.
Commissioner Atkins.
Yes.
Commissioner Chavez.
Yes.
Commissioner Lazarus.
Yes.
And Commissioner Epperson.
Yes.
That motion carries with 12 in favor. We're now on to resolution 36 of 2020. It's, would you like me to read it now? Okay. Yep. A resolution urging the state legislature to authorize the automatic extension of time for voting at polling places that are opened late or suffer delays for unforeseen emergencies and to otherwise provide with respect thereto.
Recommend moving forward to tomorrow's agenda.
Second.
Got a motion by Commissioner Epperson. I didn't recall who's seconded that. Who was that?
That was the other Epperson. No, we all speak alike.
I wrote down Commissioner Brown. Don't worry, I knew who it was. Commissioner Epperson, would you like to speak on your motion?
Just like to say that there had been some circumstances previously. We had a voting precinct, whereas the janitor was not available and came in and could not open up the facility until late. And there were persons that were, wanting to vote because they were going to work. And also in the event of unforeseen circumstances, we've had power failures. So in the event that there's a power failure and the power is down, say for 1 hour, then that particular precinct, whatever that extenuating circumstances was that did not allow for citizens to vote, would be extended. If it was 30 minutes, it'll be extended 30 minutes. It was an hour. That's basically what it is, to afford everybody the allotted amount of time to register their vote.
Mr. President.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Burrow.
The reason why I was seconding this, this has nothing to do with politics at all, because a lot of times we want to draw politics into everything that we do. I think it's just a fair measure because, you know, over the years that I've been involved in the political arena, we have had circumstances where we had certain things that happen, you know, sometimes not under the control of the people who are at the polling place. The time is short, and I think it's so important that we do give that time back. So I think it's a very friendly resolution, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Commissioner Burrell.
Yes.
Okay. The last part cut off. I just want to make sure that you were done.
No, I just say that I think it's a friendly resolution. It's not political because it operates the same way in everybody's district. And you're giving the voters an opportunity to regain that time because we have had power failures and other things, and voters had to leave and then come back to vote. So if they know that that time will be added back, it would give them time to come back and take care of their public duties. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Epperson, one thing I wanted to address, and I agree, this isn't a political issue, or it should be very unbiased, but for the very last day of voting, when the polls would close, what about that day? Let's just say that day is on a Tuesday and they got there late that day. However, when the polls close at 8 p.m., if the state legislature changes something for that last day, it would take more time for them to send their information off to the Secretary of State. So that's my only reservation with this, is what would happen on the very last day. And I have Commissioner Hopkins on the board to speak after myself. Commissioner Hopkins.
Yeah, I'm gonna vote to move this tomorrow, but I would request that administration, the registrar of voters, to come to our meeting tomorrow. I have a few questions I'd like to ask him pertaining to this situation. So if he would come, I would appreciate that. That's all. Thank you.
Mr. Everson, will you set that up so our new registrar of voters can show up tomorrow?
Be glad to reach out to him.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Jackson.
I think the actual day of voting, my understanding is day of voting is responsibility of the clerk of court. And so y'all might want to get the clerk of court and not the registrar of voting.
That would be fine.
That's correct.
Okay.
That the clerk of court would be fine then. Thank you.
Mr. Spence instead. All right. I see no other commissioners on the board. Roll call vote, please.
Okay, Hopkins.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Jackson.
Yes.
Young.
Yes.
Burrell.
Yes.
Cawthorn.
Yes.
Gage Watts. I thought I heard a yes, but if that's incorrect, let me know.
Yes. No,
Okay.
you're correct.
Thank you. Commissioner
Yes.
Taliaferro.
Yes.
Commissioner Atkins.
Yes.
Commissioner Chavez.
Yes.
Commissioner Lazarus.
Yes.
And Commissioner Epperson.
Yes.
Motion carries with 12 in support. And our next is authorizing resolution number 37 of 2020. A resolution urging the Governor Edwards and the Louisiana Legislature to review enforcement of fines and penalties for violations.
Thursday.
Second.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Epperson to move to Tuesday, seconded by Commissioner Hopkins. Commissioner Epperson, would you like to speak on this?
I had an attachment when I think about
sir.
just 5 pages of some fines that was listed. And I'm sure you all saw those figures just with 5 pages. And I just think it's, the state is struggling for budgetary money. And if we have all of these things that we go by, we must file our financial disclosure statements on time, our campaign, election expenditures and reports on time. And for the most part, the majority of the people does that. If you look at that, that's almost $100,000 just for 5 pages. And some of them are the same people that's redundant, and it goes back years. It's just not fair to people who do what they're supposed to do on time. And it should send a message that this isn't anything to play with, or that there's any partiality. So that's a wealth of money that they can get to use somewhere else, even if they have to go out with a private collection agency. But there are some things that they need to do to strengthen those laws. And I do have some good suggestions that I would recommend in the event that they take this up. That's all I have, sir.
Any other commissioners on the board? I see none. Mr. Everson.
Commissioner Hopkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson,
Yes.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Burrell,
Yes.
Commissioner Cawthorn,
Yes.
Commissioner Gage Watts,
Yes.
Commissioner Taliaferro,
Yes.
Commissioner Atkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Chavez,
Yes.
Commissioner Lazarus,
Yes.
and Commissioner Epperson.
Yes.
That motion carries with 12 in support. And can y'all hear me? I'm having some audio. Okay, thank you. So we are on to authorized resolution number 38 of 2020.
So, the motion by
Second.
Watts and second by Hopkins, I believe.
That's correct.
Okay. Commissioner Watts, would you like to speak on this?
No, I just ask for your support. It's just a basic, what you call, easy resolution to support. But I also would like you to keep in mind, there's a baby in Bossier City, and I will not release his name for privacy purposes. But he was on the news last week. So I just ask you to keep that baby in your prayers, who is currently fighting brain.
Thank you, Commissioner Watts. Commissioner Johnson.
Yes, I'd like to in global and advance resolution number 38, the reappointment to Pine Hill Waterworks District Board number 8, reappointment to Pine Hill Waterworks District number 8, reappointments to North Shreveport Industrial Park, and the special proclamation for the seniors of 2020.
Second.
Second.
Would you like to speak on that motion?
No.
All right. Mr. Epperson.
Okay. Could somebody clarify who the second was on that?
Epperson.
Epperson.
Epperson? Thank you.
Yes.
Hopkins.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Jackson.
Yes.
Young.
Yes.
Burrell.
Yes.
Cawthorn.
Yes.
Gage Watts.
Yes.
Thank you. Taliaferro.
Yes.
Atkins.
Yes.
Chavez.
Yes.
Lazarus.
Yes.
And Epperson.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries with 12 in support, and that leaves us with review proposals submitted for selection of the 2020-2021 Caddo Parish Official Journal.
Move for tomorrow's agenda.
Second.
Got a motion for Commissioner Epperson to move to tomorrow, seconded by Commissioner Hopkins. Commissioner Epperson, would you like to speak on that?
We can go by our previous methods of selection. If the clerk will get that information out and have it ready for the meeting tomorrow.
Mr. President, clarification.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Burrow.
Addressing what Commissioner Epperson just said, some of us are not familiar with the process. Seem like this is an important item. Is it something that we can just get out and review and have a decision by tomorrow? Because we have our regular meeting on tomorrow. I know, many of you have already gone through this process before, but it seems like it's something that is rather important, to have the official journal and a contract that the parish is doing. So I'm asking, is something that we can address tomorrow for those who are new and not familiar with the process, or it's more complicated than that? I know we haven't had any discussion on it. I haven't had any discussion with anybody.
Mr. Chairman, the motion is to move the three options to tomorrow. And then Mr. Epperson requested that the information be sent of how we've previously voted on this. So I'll ask for Mr. Epperson to email that out today so that we can see how we've voted and chosen our publication historically. And then tomorrow we would have to make a motion to adopt how we're going to choose to pick which publication. Today's motion that Commissioner Epperson just made was just to move the three options till tomorrow.
Okay, so we won't be voting on which one, just to review the information.
Right, tomorrow we'll actually be voting on, first we'll have to take up how we're going to choose it, which when Mr. Everson sends us that information today, either we can adopt that tomorrow to choose that as our process or create a new one. But we're moving it to tomorrow's meeting as of right now when we vote.
Okay. All right, I understand that. Thank you.
I have Commissioner Jackson on the board.
No, that must have been a mistake. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Epperson, did you have something to add? I saw you kind of wave.
Just if anyone would like some information relative to the previous history of the official journal, please feel free to contact me.
Well, I'm contacting you now since I have you on the line.
And also, I think it's in our charter, this election.
Okay. Well, I'm making my request now, Ken.
You're gonna have to be offline, Roy.
There.
The what?
You're gonna have to be offline, not right now.
It's rather extensive, and I wanted to pull the documentation, with our charter. And I think you had a copy of the charter. That way, you can have an opportunity to digest it. Nothing very complicated.
Okay, well, okay, well, you address the issue. That's fine.
Commissioner Jackson, please push your button for the hand. Other than that, I see no other commissioners on the board. Mr. Everson, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Hopkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson,
Yes.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Burrell,
Yes.
Commissioner Cawthorn,
Yes.
Commissioner Gage-Watt,
Yes.
Commissioner Taliaferro,
Yes.
Commissioner Atkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Chavez,
Yes.
Commissioner Lazarus,
Yes.
and Commissioner Epperson.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries with 12 in favor. And that brings us to the next item is the discussion regarding future commission meetings.
Really quick, Mr. Everson, where do we need to address the resolution for Commissioner Epperson's to urge the governor about the Zoom meetings?
Yes, sir. That's the next item.
Okay. All right, we'll go ahead and proceed with the discussion regarding future commission meetings.
Mr. President, I think we've largely discussed that with respect to the next item on the agenda. It all kind of got lumped together, it seems to me.
I would agree with that. I do so. Commissioner Jackson, no, never mind. He just unclicked again. Any commissioners would like to discuss this? If not, we'll move on to Commissioner. I see on the board, Commissioner Burrell. Go ahead.
Mr. President, I think I made the comment earlier and didn't get a resolution to it, and it may be such that there is no particular resolution. I did get a couple of texts saying that the question that I raised was a very important question, given the fact that we can't do Zoom and in-face meetings technologically at this point. So if we're going to address this issue to the governor, then we should be clear on our end as to whether or not it can be done. Simply because if you can't do it, then that means that those that will not be able to attend the meeting in the council, then their leadership is null and void. It cannot vote. First of all, now in terms of discussion, you can't discuss something when you're not there. So somewhere along the line, the issue is going to have to be addressed, whether it is now or whether it's before the resolution is sent to the governor.
Mr. Chairman.
I hear you, Commissioner Everson. Go ahead.
Hello.
Commissioner Epperson?
Yes. I'm on the board.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Burrell, I think, and Ms. Frazier, I'd like for you to chime in. The gist of what we can do, if we can have an in-person as well as those that cannot appear in person to continue to use Zoom, is left up to the discretion of the governor. That's the met of my resolution today, my motion today. While we were in the meeting, the deputy chief of staff from the governor's office did call me. They are very understanding as to what we are requesting relative to this motion. Also, Guy Cormier, our executive director of the Police Jury Association, has chimed in, because I think probably about a third of our members of our Police Jurors Association, which all 64 parish members, have some situations relative to those age and those underlying health conditions, as well as some parishes in our association barely can take care of their basic responsibilities, letting alone do some adjustment for in public meetings that some others may be financially or physically astute that they can do those kind of things. So I think the deal is now is to get that information to the governor. I think they understand that situation. And let's also think about the Supreme Court justices, unprecedented in the history of the Supreme Court, met via Zoom. And I think Ruth Bader Ginsburg may have got her teleconference while she was in the hospital. So this is a relevant issue. I think I know it's the right thing to do. And I think it'll be discriminatory that we have a health pandemic in situation, whereas some members would jeopardize their health and they can still participate otherwise.
Commissioner Epperson, don't get me wrong, I'm supportive of it. That's the reason why I seconded your resolution. But being a person who has been an engineer for 22 years in telecommunications, I guess the technical portion of this is what I'm concerned about, and I would like to ask our clerk, because I think they have more information on the technical part of this as to whether or not this can be done at this point. Not saying that it can't be done. Do we have the capabilities of doing it at this point, Mr. Clerk?
Commissioner Burrell, the Information Technology Department has been looking into that. They have informed us of various challenges depending on how it would be set up, but they're continuing to look at it. So we're aware that it's not simple, but we don't have a final answer, just that there are some complications to the various methods that have been proposed thus far.
I just want to make sure that we raise that question, because if I'm one that's not going to be there, I don't think my constituents would look at me very favorably if I can't vote on their behalf, because we have a situation that technologically we cannot move forward. If we would still do all Zoom, that's fine, but we don't know what the governor will say. So I'm just raising that flag at this point on the technical end. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner Burrell and Commissioner Epperson. Commissioner Telefair, I see you on the board, and then Commissioner Atkins.
In my turn, Mr. Commissioner? Mr. President.
Go ahead, Commissioner Telefair.
Okay, I just had a quick question because of the subject matter. I'm all in agreement that I want every one of our commissioners to have the opportunity to cast a vote, because that's what they sit in that chair for. And my question, maybe to Commissioner Atkins, is that do we need to make a motion to to either table, suspend our current plan to have physical meetings and just continue with the Zoom meeting until further notification? Do we have to have something, kind of stating that until we get the information back from the governor's office, or until we can make some determination to include everyone? Would that be the wise move going forward? I yield.
Mr. President, if that question is addressed to me, I'll have to yield to Ms. Frazier regarding what we are legally required to do at this point.
Yeah, I made the mistake. I'm sorry. That was for Attorney Frazier. I was just looking at your picture, John, and just blurted that out.
Well, as the parliamentarian, it was not an inappropriate place to direct it, but I will slide it over to Ms. Frazier.
Commissioner Talaferro, it's my understanding that you're asking whether or not you should defer this vote, or what exactly you're allowed to do at this point. I want to make sure.
I think there is a division, I say that there's a division. I think there's a difference of opinion on whether to go forward with getting back into the chambers or continuing with the Zoom. And obviously, Commissioner Epperson has brought up some valid points. And I want everybody's opportunity to be heard, regardless if it's through electronic means or technological means or physically in person. So my question actually is only that, do we need to just, do we have to do anything with this motion, or do we have to do anything with this to either table it or suspend it or postpone it until we get more clarification back on what we are able to do, whether we're able to blend physical and remote access to our constituents, to our commissioners who feel the necessity to stay quarantined, or what's the procedure? That's it. I don't want to cloud the issue too much.
Commissioner, at this point, you are in an either or proposition. You don't have the option to do partially Zoom and partially in person. Now, as a practical matter, the governor usually will issue his proclamation on the day before it's to go into effect. So if he's moving into phase 2 on Friday, he should issue a proclamation tomorrow. So if you vote tomorrow, your proclamations or whatever may pass, kind of fly by each other. I want to say in the mail, but I know that's not technically how that's going to be done. However, if you do not vote on the resolution tomorrow, whatever your consensus is will not reach him prior to your next meeting, and you're going to be in the same spot or whatever spot he dictates in his proclamation. And there's also an opportunity for him, if he doesn't address this in the proclamation that he issues on tomorrow, there is an opportunity for him to amend it. But you would want to get whatever your consensus is for him to do that as soon as possible. So did that answer the question?
Commissioner Jackson and then Commissioner Epperson.
Are we just considering some legislation right now?
No, we're under the agenda item discussion regarding future commission meetings. I know this is kind of tied in with what we're about to vote on when we take up Commissioner Epperson's agenda addition.
Oh, I apologize. I'm sorry. I thought y'all were voting on that resolution.
So shouldn't we vote on the resolution first? I'm lost. Because it made it seem like I almost felt like we was back in the 9 o'clock hour talking about the resolution. So and some of us are working in an office setting, and some of us need to get back to work. I've spent the whole morning. So if we could get on with the resolution, and I'm just asking if we could get on with the resolution and have discussions later, where some of us may or may not want to be able to participate too. I'm not trying to rush anybody, but some of us are not at the point of being able to just have so much discretionary time. I've spent the entire morning on this Zoom call. It's almost noon now.
And, Commissioner Epperson next.
Hello?
Yes, sir. Go ahead,
Okay,
Commissioner.
are we on discussion regarding future meetings or my motion?
Yes, we're on discussion regarding future commission meetings. However, you can go ahead and make your motion of the other one because
Okay, I understood explicitly what Ms. Frazier stated. So at this time, I would like to make a motion that tomorrow's commission meeting be on Zoom.
Second.
Okay. No discussion and no debate from me. And then we'll vote on my motion to send to the government.
Okay. Would you like to speak on that motion? Pretty self-explanatory.
He said there was no discussion.
No.
He said there was no discussion.
No discussion. Okay. All right. Mr. Everson, roll call vote, please.
Hopkins.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Jackson.
Yes.
Young.
Yes.
Burrell.
Yes.
Cawthorn.
Yes.
Gage Watts.
Yes.
Taliaferro.
Yes.
Atkins.
Yeah.
Chavez.
Yes.
Lazarus.
Yes.
And Epperson.
Yes.
That motion carries with 12 in support. Do you want me to read the next agenda item, which is your agenda addition, Commissioner Epperson?
Yes.
Okay. We are on agenda item 1113, and that is a resolution urging the governor to direct the changes to his proclamation to allow for partial Zoom participation in public meetings.
Move to advance.
Second.
We got a motion on the floor and a second by Commissioner Jackson. Would you like to speak on that motion, Commissioner Epperson?
No, sir.
All right. LBJ, is your hand up from a prior discussion, or would you like to speak?
Point of information.
Hang tight 1 sec, Commissioner Gross. I want to make sure that LBJ either wanted to speak or did not want to speak.
No, I'm not on the board.
Okay. Commissioner, go ahead.
Sir.
Go ahead. You have the floor.
Mr. Chairman, I'm just going to make the assumption, given the fact that technologically, we can't do this at this point, which has been expressed by the clerk, that when this resolution is sent down, I'll assume that they're going to take that into consideration, because we're asking for support of something as of right now we don't have the capabilities of doing. Not saying that we will not. I just understood it to be that it's more complicated. It's what I'm understanding. So I just wanted to make that point of clarification. I don't care which way you vote on it. I mean, that's you, but it's still going to have to work.
Commissioner Atkins.
Excuse me? I don't have anything.
Who was it?
I'm sorry. Commissioner Atkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. To Commissioner Burrell's point, I have confidence that our technology people will be able to figure it out. Maybe I'll be wrong, but they usually are able to figure these kind of things out. So we'll see. We can pass it and then see if the technology prevents us from executing.
I support that.
Mr. Chairman.
If we get to a situation where we can meet in person, and for the safety of, let's say, for instance, Commissioner Epperson, I'll be glad to keep my phone at my desk at the commission office and give Commissioner Epperson his time to speak as well as acknowledge his votes. So I think between our IT department and our current technology, we can figure out a solution if it comes to it. So I'll be supporting Commissioner Epperson's motion as well.
I agree wholeheartedly. We have the best IT department in the world. We can send people to the moon and back. We can certainly handle that.
Thank you, Commissioner Epperson. I see no other commissioners on the board. Mr. Everson, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Hopkins.
No.
Hold on. I do see Commissioner Johnson.
I just want to say one quick thing, that it's not only just Commissioner Epperson. We also have staff that also have underlying conditions as well. So, I mean, we only not just talking about one person, but we talk about the employees of the parish as well too, that have to come into that chamber sometime. And some of them also have underlying health conditions. So, you know, this is something more than just for one person. It's for the employees of Caddo Parish, department heads that may come through there, and anybody that's associated with us. That's all.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Commissioner Taliaferro.
Just point of clarification, just tell me again what we're going to be voting on and how we're phrasing it, please.
Mr. Emerson, if you will read that, please.
Sure thing. It's a resolution urging the governor to direct the changes to his proclamation to allow for partial Zoom participation in public meetings.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Mr. Jackson, are you on the board?
Yes. I just want to note that I know we talked about individuals that are in a high risk age category, but I know at least two of us work in a healthcare setting, and I can tell you, although I don't work directly in our clinics, I do interact a lot with our clinics, and sometimes I may need to go over on that side or something. And so my protocol, since we've started this COVID-19, is avoid individuals as much as possible after I leave work and while I'm at work. And so if I'm not in between my office and my home, it's more than likely I'm going to get gas, I'm going to get groceries. And so I just want us to be mindful that we do have individuals that work in the healthcare community that are also being exposed or have the potential to be exposed. And so my concern is not so much about my safety, it's about if I ever am exposed and or spreading or something like that. I have a protocol that I take when I go home. I strip down out of my clothes and things like that. And so it you know, we need to consider all
Too much
things,
information,
all scenarios and possible. I'm not answering any questions right now. I'm just, just putting that out there.
Thank you, Commissioner Jackson. Mr. Watts, I assume you're on the board.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. President. Thank you, Commissioner Jackson, for stating that also. And for those of us who care for someone who is immune compromised, it's also putting ourselves at risk where we may not actually contract any infection, but we could pass it on to them unknowingly. So also take that into consideration for those of us who are caring for immune compromised patients. So there's a lot of things at risk here. And as Commissioner Jackson has said, working in the healthcare industry has given us much education about the exposure to this virus. And at best, right now, what we can do is continue to practice social distancing and continue to do Zoom meetings when applicable. Thank you.
Commissioner Hopkins.
Question to legal. Is the legislature using Zoom? Or are they meeting in person?
Commissioner, I am not aware that they're using Zoom. I do believe they have at least been on before. I'm not sure what they're doing in committees.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you, commissioners. I see no one else on the board. Mr. Everson.
Okay, Commissioner Hopkins,
No.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson,
Yes.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Burrell,
Yes.
Commissioner Cawthorn,
Yes.
Commissioner Gage Watts,
Yes.
Commissioner Taliaferro,
Yes.
Commissioner Atkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Chavez,
Yes.
Commissioner Lazarus,
Yes.
and Commissioner Epperson.
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes with, motion carries with 11 in favor and 1 in opposition.
Moving on to communications and committee reports. No commissioners on the board. We move on to citizens' comments later. I'm sorry, Commissioner Burrell.
Oh, let me be clear. Are we down to commissioners' remark? Wait a minute. Where are we?
Communiques and committee reports.
Okay, that's for us to address. That's the one where we can sing if we want to.
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't have a song for you today, except I want to address the situation with the George Floyd murder and the national unrest that's there. It appears that it has also come to our community, and as community leaders, putting that in quotes, I know that the public is in some cases demanding us to be there and for us to tell them what we're doing to try to address this situation if it occurs here in the city or parish. I was just informed on I think it was a Channel 3 report that there was 2 deaths that was potentially caused in the care of our city police officer. I'm an urban commissioner, so I have concerns about that, and I will be trying to find more information about that. Now, not knowing as a commissioner what our relationship is completely with the sheriff's department, they are also a law enforcement agency. And I want to be comfortable if we have any jurisdiction there. I know the sheriff, I know in most parishes, if not all, are all powerful. And they may feel as though we may be encroaching upon their responsibility. But I would like to know what they do have in place in order to try to address an issue like this, which has caused a considerable amount of pain, not only to the family of this person, and there are many others, as you know, if you listen to any news at all, whether it's local or nationally, that this is taking place. And it's just like the COVID virus. It is disproportionately affecting our minority community, our Black and brown communities. from our administrative, from the administration, again, I would like to know, what, I think we have an association more with the sheriff department than we do with the police department. Could he find out what do we have in place to deal with issues where the chokehold is outlawed, or how do we address those type of issues as it relates to George Floyd, I think his name is. So I'm giving that as I won't say a directive, but a request to the administration to kind of find that out for me, so that we can determine whether or not it's something that we need to do, because this thing may get worse before it gets better. The second communication I want to make is to my fellow commissioners who don't look like me. We are here to work with each other for the betterment of the community as a whole, and sometimes silence is complicity. And I've been in this business 20 years, and I know that we've had issues where if one group of people are having issues, the other one stands silent. I don't think that we have that opportunity now to do that, because this thing is really getting very serious and blown out of proportion. And given the fact that our commander-in-chief, whether you support him or not, is not really helping the matter, in my opinion. In yours it may be, but in my opinion, is exacerbating the situation. So I'm asking my fellow colleagues to give some consideration and some prayer, since we pray every day, that when you see these type things take place, let's look at each other as human, not whether we are associated with a particular party or a particular ethnic group, because eventually it comes at your door. It comes to your door. And so again, I just wanted to kind of put that out in terms of our communique, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Burrell. Commissioner Cawthorn.
Thank you. Yeah, Commissioner Burrell. I don't think any of the people on the commission favor one another. So could you be more direct in terms of the people you said that don't look like you?
Well, I'll put it this way.
I'm only kidding. Hey, but excellent comment. I want to go back, Mr. President, and just address one thing. Earlier, you mentioned that that for the commission to do a Zoom meetings on a weekly basis, whatever length of time we've been doing it, as a cost to the commission. I want to seek to the administration to do two things for me, to see whether or not, what is the cost that we've incurred so far with the Zoom meeting? And then secondly, whether or not it would be a reimbursable cost under the CARES Act, based in as much as we've had to do them by our meetings via Zoom.
That's a great point.
All righty. Okay. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Dr. Wilson, I want to make sure that was on the record to see if we can use the CARES Act to reimburse the parish for these Zoom meetings. Okay, got it.
Yes, sir.
And Commissioner.
I see no other commissioners on the board. Commissioners, if you want to get on the board, just wave at me real quick. If not, we'll move along. I see none. Mr. Everson, do we have any citizens' comments, late arrivals? Jeff, are you there? Still with us? I think he may be.
I'm sorry, I was talking and not realizing I was muted. My apologies. So we do have one citizen comment that came in, and it is the woman who was on the phone earlier, who was making comments during the public comments of the public hearing for the agenda expansion. She emailed in and asked that we read her comments into the record. She says, and her name is Mrs. Jill Brown. She says, I am supporting this agenda addition not only for your safety of the commissioners, but for the safety of all public as well. I understand that Zoom costs the commission. I also understand that the commission gives away thousands of dollars to different organizations. This is a cost that will keep the public safe and will be well worth it. I have come to many meetings at the Caddo Parish Commission at Government Plaza, but during this time, I would have to refrain from coming to your meetings due to trying to keep my husband and my family safe. So by having the meetings on Zoom, I am able to participate and view your meetings. My prayers are that we all stay safe and take every precaution to do so. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you, Mr. Everson. That concludes our citizens' comments, late arrivals. We move on to consent agenda.
Move to adjourn.
Mr. President, I think Commissioner Epperson may have had a comment before we adjourn.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Atkins. Commissioner Epperson, go ahead.
You muted. You muted. You got to unmute yourself.
No, sir.
He
Okay.
does it.
No. Mr. President,
Yes, sir, Commissioner Burrow.
I'll try to make the final comment. I know we've been addressing this issue about the Zoom meetings. I'm glad to hear from that constituent who is part of the public that see the advantage of them being able to participate more so than coming down and putting themselves in jeopardy. So I hope that brings some comfort to some of my fellow commissioners who still think that we need to have it open so that the public can come down. I think we're taking care of the business of the people. Seem like the most I've heard in this whole conversation is whether or not the public can come down and address us face to face. That was my overall observation of it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Burrow. We got a motion on the floor. The chair will second. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, Commissioners. See you tomorrow.